Chapter 726. Ivankov's face turned green. Like crocodile, his broad and rough face was filled with fear. This terrifying person who easily defeated Durag was not to be underestimated. He was a forbidden existence that could not be touched. He could only look up, unable to look at him. To be honest, your medical skills are so superb, it's really surprising. During the conversation, Dustless's body completely ignored the existence of gravity and floated in front of Ivankov and Crocodile. Nico, Robin, and Hancock also followed. He stared at Crocodile and Ivankov. Dustless was fine, but the appearance of Robin immediately aroused Crocodile's hatred. He stared at Robin fiercely, and his eyes almost popped out. You actually guessed that I would come to his aid." Ivankov's face was pale, and he instinctively suspected that there was a traitor in the Revolutionary Army. With a chuckle, Dustless explained, "This is very simple. Decades ago, when you contacted Crocodile, the Revolutionary Army was already under my control. White Zetsu had been ordered to monitor the movements of the Revolutionary Army and Crocodile. By the way, your ability should not belong to the category of treatment." Dustless's deep eyes sparkled, and he looked at Ivankov with a little surprise. "In a sense, I have used the ability of Rinnegan to modify Durag's memory, but you can still make him change back. This kind of disease can't be cured at will." Dustless used Rinnegan to modify Durag's memory, but Ivankov in front of him could restore Durag's memory. Dustless was naturally surprised. "Doctor? I never said that I was a doctor." Although his strength was not as good as Dustless, Ivankov could not be captured. He was not afraid at all, and his words revealed unprecedented firmness. Now there were only two ways to go, to fight to the death or to wait for death. He naturally chose the former. "Of course I know that. You're a paramecia user, not a simple doctor. You're a human engineer who can transform people from the inside. The ability user's healing hormone can give people with incurable diseases a chance to be saved, but at the cost of several years of their lifespan," Dustless explained with a smile. In fact, Dustless knew that he was releasing a tiger back to the mountain when he let Durag go. "How about now? Are you two going to put on the collar yourselves or—" Death's charming eyes. Before Dustless could finish his words, Ivankov took the initiative to launch an attack. He blinked his eyes abruptly and pounced directly at Dustless. Naive, helplessly shaking his head, Dustless easily used elementalization to avoid the impact of the storm, while Hancock and Robin easily dodged sideways. "What are you looking at? Run, you idiot!" Ivankov glared at Crocodile and cursed. Then, he turned into a gust of wind and disappeared, stirring up a violent sandstorm. Looking up, Crocodile's eyes were blood-red as he stared at Robin with resentment. He then turned around and fled. Facing Dustless, he really couldn't summon the strength to resist. His pride and dignity had been completely crushed. Without any nonsense, Crocodile's body also elementalized and he turned into a sandstorm to escape. Running away was also a skill. This was a matter of life and death, and Crocodile and Ivankov had done everything they could to the fullest. "Run. It's meaningless." Staring at the gradually disappearing afterimage, Wu Chen's mouth curved into a cold arc. He suddenly lifted his right foot and attracted countless photons like a black hole. It contained a powerful force that was enough to destroy a mountain. Light speed kick. The moment his voice fell, the light gathered at Dustless's right foot gushed out and turned into a straight beam that swallowed Ivankov. Boom! Boom! The ear-piercing explosion resounded through the sky. The sky was cloudless for thousands of miles. Suddenly, a large flame rose, and the dark smoke burned hundreds of meters high. On the soft sand, a deep pit that was tens of meters wide suddenly appeared. Boom! Ivankov's body was scorched. Due to the explosion of the light speed kick, there were black burn wounds all over his body, and the clothes on his upper body were full of holes. As for you, Dustless's cold eyes fell on Crocodile's body. He had a playful smile on his face, like a cat playing with a mouse. He had to kill a person twice. It was the first time in his life that he experienced such a situation. The palm of his right hand covered the storm that Crocodile turned into, and a strong gravitational force erupted. 10,000 heavenly attraction. The palm of his hand turned into a dark hole, as if it was connected to the dark abyss of the universe. The terrifying gravitational force was enough to tear any matter in the world. Every move was different from person to person. The strong would strengthen themselves, and the weak would weaken themselves. The 10,000 things heaven's pull used by Dustless was hundreds of times stronger than the vortex Nagato. Within a radius of 1 kilometer, everything was bound by this gravitational force. Damn it! Aware of the abnormality in his body, Crocodile's face changed dramatically. The majestic gravitational force pulled his body, and it was difficult to move forward. Crocodile's face turned into determination, and he cancelled the elemental transformation without hesitation. Ivankov can do physical transformation. I heard that any injury can be resurrected, but I have always been curious. If I twist off your head, can you still be resurrected? Chapter 727. Crocodile's soul trembled, and a cold chill shrouded him. His whole body seemed to be frozen, and he lost the ability to react. Swish! 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 The sharp sound of breaking the air rushed over. In almost a blink of an eye, Dustless crossed layers of space and appeared on the right side of Crocodile. What followed was his leg that was emitting golden light. Light speed kick. Crocodile's pupils suddenly shrank. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The earth-shattering power even broke his whole body. Boom! 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 The bright light was released instantly, and the luster of destruction jumped out. Crocodile was destroyed by Dustless's overwhelming power in just a moment. He was easily kicked hundreds of meters away. Ka-ka-ka! The crisp and pleasant sound of bones was heard. Only those with sharp eyes could see that Crocodile's chest was deeply sunken, and his ribs were almost shattered instantly. In just a short gap of a few breaths, the Ladyboy King Ivankov and Crocodile were defeated by invincible strength. Ha! This guy's body doesn't seem to be human anymore. His endurance is not bad. But that's all. Ivankov struggled to pull his head out of the desert. His face was as pale as paper, and his eyes flashed with lingering fear from time to time. Looking at the calm Dustless, he couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. This guy. No wonder he could defeat Dorag. If I hadn't transformed my body before, I would have been killed in seconds just now. Ivankov's eyes were filled with fear, and at the same time, his eyes were jumping and flashing with a strange light. I have to think of a life-saving strategy. Frowning, Ivankov thought of a strategy in his heart and increased the operation of his brain cells to the extreme. However, for a long time, he still couldn't think of a suitable life-saving strategy. His strength was not as good as others, and his speed was 1,000 miles behind. Even his IQ was perfectly crushed by Dustless. Ivankov's eyes turned black when he thought about it. The world in front of him had abandoned him. Ah! It seems like you're already at the end of your rope. How disappointing. I thought you would still have a pleasing performance, but it seems like I was thinking too much. You should stop here. A ray of light flashed, and Wuxia appeared in front of Ivankov instantly. He put his hands in his trouser pockets, and his face was filled with boredom and disappointment. As for Crocodile, he was almost eliminated. He was finished off by a casual light-speed kick. Ivankov's body had been modified. Although his endurance was extremely high, he would probably be eliminated by the next kick. There was no comparison at all. The difference between the dimensions of both sides was too great. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Crocodile and Ivankov were crushed like ants. Cough, cough, cough. How dare you be so arrogant? Standing up with difficulty, Ivankov finally chose to continue to resist, because the result of obeying Dustless was to be locked in the dark impel down, and this was the best result. If he was unlucky, he would be directly obliterated. Just like Crocodile, who was almost crippled by Dustless's kick. Milky Way wink. Seeing Dustless's lazy and bored face, a hurricane dozens of times stronger than the death's charming eyes came. Boom boom boom. The ferocious storm destroyed the world. The hurricane thrown out by the high-speed rotation frequency was unstoppable. It was like a knife tossing the sand into a desolation. Poochie poochie. In an instant Dustless, who was motionless like a sculpture, was swallowed. The sound of flesh being cut was chilling. The storm of swords seemed to be able to cut steel. Haha, this time you brat. What kind of joke is this? The proud face suddenly froze. Ivankov's pupils dilated, and he looked at Dustless who was walking out of the storm. He was petrified as if he saw a ghost. Intact? It must be because of my old eyes. Ivankov rubbed his eyes, and Dustless was intact. His clothes were clean, his face was ruddy, and his breathing was extremely rhythmic. Obviously, he was very healthy. Not to mention severely injuring Dustless, even his clothes showed no signs of being damaged. It was as if the attack was directly ignored and filtered. What's so surprising about being intact? Did you expect to defeat me with this ridiculous trick? You really can't be judged by the eyes of ordinary people. Looking carefully at the sluggish Ivankov, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He had lost interest. A fight between children, let's stop here. Don't waste my time. Staring at the stones around Ivankov, Dustless's expression gradually turned cold. Heavenly Hand Power. Activating the ability of Rinnegan, he directly appeared behind Ivankov, holding an ancient tachi in his hand, which was filled with the vicissitudes of life and inauspiciousness. Staring at Ivankov in front of him, Dustless's eyes flashed with contempt. The gap between them was too big, and it was difficult to arouse his interest. Clang! The first-generation ghost blade in his hand was unsheathed, and there was a roar of steel. When Ivankov reacted, his face changed drastically. When he was about to dodge, it was already too late. The first-generation ghost blade had already cut his body, leaving an unerasable mark. Pucci! Blood splashed everywhere. Ivankov's back was torn open, and there were many ghastly wounds on it. His strength was gone in an instant, and he fell to the ground unwillingly, losing his consciousness. Only my weak breathing could be heard. Chapter 728. Yellow sand filled the sky, and the world in their line of sight was a blur of vicissitudes. The visibility in the surroundings was less than 1 meter, and the cold wind mixed with particles made people not dare to open their eyes. Even their faces would feel an unusual piercing pain. The soft sand flowed with scarlet blood, which looked dazzling. In the pool of blood, Ivankov's breath was weak and he had lost consciousness. His whole body was drenched in blood. There was no doubt that as long as Dustless slightly increased his strength, this world-famous transvestite king would step into the door of the underworld. Master, don't you need to kill him? Hancock and Robin asked. Their shining eyes were full of fanaticism. Dustless's strength was so exaggerated that only an admiral could barely deal with Dustless. But it was just barely. Kill him. Dustless looked at Hancock and Robin with surprise. Even a 3-year-old child could kill Ivankov. However, to Dustless's surprise, Hancock and Robin were so decisive. Robin was okay. She had been wandering in the outside world for many years and had witnessed too many sinister people. It was understandable that she chose to kill him to protect herself. Hancock had followed Dustless for many years, but she had never killed a chicken. Now she easily said that she would kill Ivankov, indicating that she had made a choice in her heart. This guy doesn't need to be killed for the time being. There are still many unsolved mysteries to be solved. As for Crocodile, I can only say sorry, unfortunately he will die. Now in this world, only Crocodile knew that Robin was Dustless's subordinate. In order to seal his mouth, Crocodile would naturally shut up forever. But he won't slip away, Dustless suddenly said as he stared indifferently into the distance. This guy's body is strange. If we leave him alone, he will definitely run away. Hancock and Robin said with a little worry. Don't worry about it. A nobody will always be a nobody. Even if you give him a stage to show his talent, he will make a fool of himself. His clown-like rough acting skills will also make people laugh. Wu Chen waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to worry about it. What's more, under his majestic perception, Akiji has already arrived with a large number of marines, and Ivankov will inevitably be captured and sent to impel down. Dustless stared at Ivankov, who was lying in a pool of blood, and left in a flash. Ivankov had already been severely injured and had lost consciousness. It was impossible for him to escape in his current state. I can't die here. In the future, I must find that bastard and Nico Robin for revenge. I can't let them live so freely, absolutely. In the howling sandstorm, Crocodile dragged his tired body and forced himself forward. With every step he took, his body would sway and give off a nauseating smell. Instinctively, he was already at the end of his rope, and it was only a matter of time before he stepped into the kingdom of heaven. However, with the support of his will to live and his unprecedented hatred for Robin, he miraculously regained a brand new vitality. Without taking revenge on Dustless and Robin, Crocodile was unwilling to die like this. Are you still having this kind of unrealistic dream? Ridiculous guy. Are you really one of the 7 warlords of the sea? Sometimes I think you are more like a kid who hasn't grown up yet. Otherwise, you wouldn't have such a naive dream. The golden rainbow fell from the sky, and Crocodile, who was unaware of it, was enveloped by this dazzling light, and then he saw Dustless falling from the sky. Bang bang bang. The powerful force could not be resisted and easily suppressed Crocodile. The ground trembled and immediately splashed up several meters of dust. Revenge on me? And Robin, maybe? But this kind of distant dream, if you want to realize it, it's better to leave it to the next life. Stepping on Crocodile's head, Dustless's face was frivolous. With a contemptuous smile on his mouth, Dustless sometimes felt that Crocodile's idea was really naive. As he once said, dreams can only be talked about by people with strength. Right now, he was nothing more than a stray dog. Even his own little life could vanish into thin air at any time. Yet he was still so hysterically thirsting for revenge. He thought that the goddess of fate would continue to favor him. That was wishful thinking. I've said it before. For the sake of world peace, you should die. Now you've been killed twice by me. You can even close your eyes peacefully under the 9 hells. This is the first time you've enjoyed such treatment. Thank God for his blessing. Farewell. The dazzling golden flash gathered at his fingertips, and Dustless aimed at Crocodile's eyebrows. The light was sharp enough to penetrate everything, and Crocodile's heart was in his throat. No, I don't have. Laser Poochie. The ferocious and ruthless beam of light easily penetrated Crocodile's head. He suddenly stopped his unwilling roar, and the whole world was quiet. It also marks the fall of a generation of heroes. At the same time, a large group of Marines led by Akiji finally arrived and finally saw the shadow. Dustless had already let Robin, the ace undercover, slip away in advance, leaving only him and Hancock. What you did was really ruthless. You killed a Shichibukai. That guy seems to be a senior cadre of the Revolutionary Army, and he seems to be dying. Looking at the messy battlefield, Akiji couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 729. Especially Crocodile's miserable death, Akiji couldn't help but sigh with emotion. His heart was also filled with mixed feelings. The burnt hole in his head was obviously dead. Even if the gods were in the world, it would be difficult to bring the dead back to life. Looking at Crocodile, it was not difficult to see from his incredible expression that he did not realize that he would fall. How can the Revolutionary Army have anything to do with the Shichibukai? Akiji was puzzled as he looked around Crocodile and Ivankov. Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at Akiji. The source of the ancient weapon should belong to the Revolutionary Army, and he is just a pawn. Looking at Crocodile, whose body was covered with sand, Dustless affirmed, a pawn like him is just a shield pushed to the front to attract attention. Once the news of Pluton is found, I am afraid that he will be killed by the Revolutionary Army hidden in the dark. Dustless remembered in his previous life that Crocodile and Ivankov had a close relationship. Even after being imprisoned and impelled down, Ivankov threatened Crocodile for some mysterious reason, so that he had to help Straw Hat Luffy escape from prison. My task is over, and I will leave the rest to you, Kuzan. Without waiting for Akiji to respond, Dustless and Hancock passed by and went straight to the center of Alabasta. The human demon King Ivankov was on the verge of death. Crocodile had fallen. Everything was over. Wait a minute. Akiji spoke to stop Dustless from moving forward, and his questioning tone was full of curiosity. Judging from the traces of the fight, if I'm not mistaken, he has been subdued by you. Why did you kill him? Akiji's tone was slightly dissatisfied. Marines are not murderous butchers in the name of justice. Since he has been subdued, there is no need to kill Crocodile, just put him in impel down. Looking at Kuzan faintly, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Akainu could become a fleet admiral in the future. Now the sea is unprecedentedly chaotic, and only Akainu's idea of eliminating everything is in line with the current trend. Women's kindness will only make pirates more rampant. I am the one who thinks you are poisoned by Z. Looking at Akiji's stern eyes, Wuchen said calmly. It was an immutable truth that harsh punishments were needed in troubled times. An alternative kind like Akiji would sometimes push the whole world into a more uncontrollable troubled time. There is no market for your old-fashioned ideas in this era, Kuzan. Before Dustless could speak, a powerful voice with disdain came. Looking up, it was Akainu, Sakazuki, and Kizaru Borsellino. Sengoku really put in a lot of effort to get Robin this time. Squinting his eyes, Dustless was slightly surprised. At the same time, the number of the 3 admirals, including him, the number, and the 4 admirals too. This is enough to prove the importance of Nico Robin. To some extent, getting Nico Robin is equivalent to indirectly getting the dominance of the world. Looking at the world, only he can interpret the poneglyph and find the historical truth that was painstakingly buried by the world government. Of course, it is also related to the whereabouts of ancient weapons. What a delightful scene of killing each other. He didn't say anything to stop it. Dustless was delighted to see this scene. Akiji's eyes flashed with anger, and his palms were uncontrollably clenched into fists. Because he and Sakazuki have different ideas. Although the 2 sides maintain the relationship of colleagues on the surface, in fact, they are divided. People who are tainted with evil will be punished by justice. Even if they are all locked up in the Impel Down, their sins will not be washed away. Akainu said coldly as he looked at Crocodile and Ivankov. His whole body was covered with hot magma, and his murderous look made it seem that he even wanted to kill the half-dead Ivankov. The Marines' justice is not bloodthirsty, otherwise, I don't think there is any difference between them and pirates. Kuzan said without fear. The momentum of the 2 men is equal, and it seems that there is the possibility of a big battle. In the Marine, the discord between Akainu and Akiji is also known. It seems that some things have been destined for many years, and it can't be changed if you want to. It was precisely because of the discord between Akainu and Akiji that Akiji was unfortunately defeated in the Fleet Admiral battle, and eventually retired from the Marine. If it wasn't for the Sengoku period, the internal strife may have broken out. Akiji became the Fleet Admiral, and there will be no position for Akainu in the Marine. On the contrary, if Akainu became the Fleet Admiral, there will be no position for Akiji. Unfortunately, it's estimated that they can't fight, otherwise, this once-in-a-lifetime scene can't be missed. Seeing that the 2 were just talking, Dustless said. Hancock didn't know whether to laugh or cry looking at Wu Chen. He couldn't help but feel speechless. As an admiral of the Marine, instead of stopping them, he was looking forward to a big fight between the 2 of them. Hancock was helpless. Let's go. Shooting a glance at the 2 people, Dustless swaggered off. Seeing Dustless leave, Akainu and others did not stop him. Perhaps they and Dustless are not the same kind of creatures, and they want Dustless to leave as soon as possible. Kizaru and Akainu have already arrived at Alabasta. They don't want to know that the entire Alabasta is surrounded by Marines. Without Dustless's help, it will be difficult for Robin to escape from Alabasta. Chapter 730. Dustless was too lazy to participate in the grievances of the 3 admirals, and he didn't have time to meddle in their business. There were too many things involved behind this. Akainu could hook up with the world government, and Kuzan was the first choice of the Fleet Admiral. To some extent, this was a conflict between the Marine and the world government. Dustless only needed to stay out of it, and there was no need for him to get involved. In fact, Dustless hoped that Akiji and Akainu would fight, and the Marine admirals would kill each other, and the situation would be more chaotic. He could also take the opportunity to fish in troubled waters and gain greater benefits. But it should be impossible, after all. There is the existence of Kizaru. Today's chaotic world has been divided up by one piece, the world government, Marines, including the Revolutionary Army. What is left for Wu Chen are all crooked melons and cracked dates. Therefore, in order to obtain greater benefits, the world order must first collapse first. In the dense city, there was an endless stream of people passing by. After Straw Hat Luffy defeated Crocodile, the city seemed to have regained its former vitality. The kingdom in the desert, Alabasta, had a refreshing scenery. Dustless and Hancock walked in the crowd, both of them wearing heavy coats. His identity as a Marine admiral has been known to the world in recent years, and it was necessary to cover it up. Robin. Kids nowadays seem to like playing hide-and-seek with adults. This kind of boring game really can't arouse the slightest interest. Wu Chen, who was wearing a hat, lowered the brim of his hat and looked slightly helpless. After looking for a long time, he didn't find any trace of Robin. Obviously, she deliberately hid to keep him in suspense. Ah! Robin has been outside for many years, and her hidden means are perfect. Even the master can't find her. Hancock's face showed a charming dimple, and she looked very proud. Perfect and flawless? Maybe. Dustless's clear eyes looked at Hancock, and his eyes had a different meaning. Master, what's wrong with you? Seeing Dustless staring at her, Hancock's smile solidified and she asked curiously. If I didn't expose you, little girl, you would have thought that your trick was perfect. Dustless said inexplicably. Her little white hand reached for Hancock's face, and a special energy fluctuation appeared in her palm, and Hancock's mask shattered. Robin's true body was revealed. Young master, you. How do you know I am not Hancock? Robin's tone was surprised and uncertain. With this simple disguise technique, she had deceived countless Marine spies. It wasn't until today that Dustless revealed a flaw. It must be because the young master is too strong. Too strong? This has nothing to do with strength. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head decisively and then replied plainly, I have been with Hancock for more than 10 years. Her slightest movements and her smell are deeply imprinted in my mind. You can imitate her movements and even her accent, but you can't imitate Hancock's unique temperament. Humans were the spirits of all living things. Everyone had their own unique temperament, and it was not something that could be easily imitated. Hancock's smell? And her unique temperament? Is that the reason? I thought this simple disguise technique was perfect and could deceive everyone. Robin said disappointedly. Idiot. How can such a claptrap be perfect? There is no perfect thing in the world, and I hate the word perfect. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. This little disguise technique was taught to Robin by him. It could deceive ordinary people, but for those experienced pirates, it was just asking for humiliation. Let's go. I'll take you to see the person you've been dreaming of. With a gentle arc at the corner of his mouth, Wu Chen turned around and went into the dark alley. Young master hates perfection. It's incredible. Isn't young master the kind of person who always pursues the limit? Robin asked curiously. Combined with Dustless's past experience, Robin believed that he has always been the kind of person who pursues the limit and perfects himself to a perfect degree. The pursuit of the limit and the pursuit of perfection are two different things. After perfection, it means that you can't make any progress. This is not what I want to see. Dustless turned and explained. Robin nodded thoughtfully, but looking at her confused appearance, it was obvious that she didn't understand. By the way, is there such a person I dream of seeing? Robin frowned slightly and made a distressed look. She still couldn't figure out who it was. Since my mother died, I never. Is it possible that young master wants to help me resurrect my mother? Robin cried with joy. Because she was too excited, her face became red. She used to think that resurrecting her mother was just an excuse for Dustless to deceive her. She never thought that Dustless would help resurrect her mother at this moment. Yes, this kind of small problem is solved as soon as possible. Dustless nodded undeniably. Small problem? Hearing this, Robin's head was full of black lines and her face was full of speechlessness. Bringing people back to life is a small problem. She can't think of what the big problem in Dustless's eyes is. Perhaps there is no big problem in young master's eyes. Staring at Dustless's back, Robin suddenly felt very far away, extraordinarily ethereal and untouchable. The figure in front of her seemed to dissipate like a cloud at any time. Chapter 731. In the dark warehouse, there was a strange smell, and from time to time, there was a shrill squeak of mice. Obviously, no one has lived in this place for a long time. It has been abandoned for many years and it is full of stench. With the faint sunlight coming in through the window, they could vaguely see a few quiet shadows passing by. Silent, even the cunning mice didn't notice them, they just felt a gust of wind. They didn't want to know that these people were extraordinary. Even if you didn't prepare enough berries this time, you didn't have to find such a place to wait for me to cast sorcery. Dustless complained in the dark space. Over the years, his life has become more and more comfortable, and he is quite uncomfortable with this pungent stench. Master, you have to put up with it. It happened suddenly, and you didn't inform me in advance. Hancock said helplessly. It's not that she is forgetful. This is the first time she came out with dustless. Before, in Mariehua, she never needed berries. She can just ask the staff of the world government to do whatever she needs. Forget it. There is no need to go to this place. Anyway, your mother's body is stored in other places by me. There is no need to go to this disgusting place. At this moment, Dustless suddenly said. Hancock and Robin looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Dustless' will, words and actions, and any orders issued by him are the instructions of God for the two women, and they only need to respect him. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils turned sharply and turned into scarlet eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. When the scarlet eyes looked at each other, there was a kind of panic. In that case, then, Kamui! The void in front of him distorted, showing a huge darkness, exuding a majestic devouring power, and even because the power was too strong, the whole space began to distort and deform. Hancock and Robin instinctively struggled. Dustless shook his head and cast a reassuring look at the two women. Hancock and Robin's resistance stopped. Dustless didn't need to harm them, and he didn't need to harm them. If he didn't like them, he could just kill them. His eyes suddenly widened, and an even more evil eye energy shot out. Ka. Space was easily torn apart and magnified several times, turning into a giant black hole. Hancock and Robin, along with Dustless himself, disappeared in an instant. The dark and dilapidated warehouse once again returned to silence and coldness. There was no sign of human habitation in the dark night sky. It was deathly still, isolated from the rest of the world. Ka. At this moment, a crisp explosion broke the deathly silence of the past. A large black hole appeared, and 3 figures emerged from it. There was no doubt that only 3 people, Dustless, Hancock, and Robin, could appear in Kamui. A transparent coffin? A strange transparent coffin attracted Robin's attention. Lying in it was a woman. She was quite beautiful, but there were obvious traces of wrinkles in the corner of her eyes. Obviously, she was old. Mother! Robin's tone was full of surprise, and tears came out of her eyes uncontrollably. All these years, the reason why Robin lived until now was because of her mother's will, otherwise, she might have chosen to give up. Being chased endlessly by the Navy, anyone would be extremely irritated and fearful. It wasn't until Wu Chen's appearance that her former dark life was broken. She was able to live quietly and indifferently under the sun. She was able to breathe the air easily. She was no longer as secretive as before and lived a life of despair and oppression like a rat crossing the street. That's right. She is indeed your mother. She will come back to life immediately. Wu Chen vowed solemnly. It was just using his eye power to revive an ordinary human. This was nothing to him. It was as simple as eating and drinking. In fact, it was even simpler. Treating his subordinates with kindness and power was the only way to make them work harder. Especially now that Robin had joined the Straw Hat Pirates, Dustless resurrecting her mother was the original agreement. There was no need to go back on his words. He wasn't that kind of person, not to mention it was a small matter. Open the coffin. Robin nodded obediently. She then carefully removed the lid of the coffin. A cold aura of death emanated from the coffin, and Nico Olivia's frosty face entered her sight. She was motionless in the coffin, and her whole body was filled with decay. If it wasn't for the coffin's protection, she would have rotted many years ago. Can you do it, master? Seeing this scene, even Hancock, who trusted Dustless very much, couldn't help but doubt. Can you do it? This kind of question is meaningless. I can turn back time, and I can also bring people back from the dead. I am an omnipotent being, and I am also a demon who commits all kinds of evil. This kind of trivial matter is just a piece of cake for me. The line of sight suddenly focused on Robin's mother. Wu Chen's left eye also began to change rapidly. With a purple base, mysterious black ripples spread out with 9 deep and dark magatama hanging on it. It was Dustless's Rinnegan Sharingan. Robin and Hancock looked at each other nervously. Their white and tender palms exuded a little sweat as they stared at the unprecedented scene in front of them. Their breathing was much heavier than usual. Outer Path. Reincarnation. Chapter 732. Out a Path. Reincarnation. Along with Dustless's order, the malevolent Yama suddenly flashed, as if he had drilled out from hell without any warning. He opened his ferocious big mouth, enough to swallow all things in the world. Looking at the sudden appearance of this terrifying creature, Robin and Hancock instinctively retreated. Their faces were full of fear. They felt a deadly oppression from this ugly creature, which made their nerves a little confused. "Don't worry, he's just a machine-like existence, he won't hurt anyone." Dustless showed a spring breeze smile, indicating that the two women didn't need to worry. This kind of creature from hell, ordinary humans would feel fear and panic, and it's also human nature. "Kakaka!" Immediately, under the shocked gaze of the two women, the mysterious creature opened his mouth, and a strange green light was spat out from it. The light was mysterious and full of vitality, and there was an indescribable magical power that seemed to be able to be reborn. In the blink of an eye, all the green light floated into the body of Robin's mother, and like a stone thrown into the sea, it was directly absorbed and swallowed by her. After using up all of the green light, the hideous Yama King finally disappeared. "She's actually breathing." Hancock stared at Robin's mother, and she, who was already at the admiral level, clearly felt that Nico Orbia was breathing weakly. Although it was very weak, it was obvious that she could feel the residual heat in the air. She will be completely recovered soon. Robin and Hancock may not be able to see it, but Dustless's Sharingan's abnormal vision clearly saw that Nico Orbia's body was gradually recovering. The silent blood began to slowly flow again, and the completely stopped heartbeat gradually recovered, the frequency from slow to fast, and even her fingers began to move slightly. Immediately, under the horrified gaze of the two women, she finally opened her eyes that had been tightly closed. "Robin." Orbia, who opened her eyes, asked in a trembling voice. She struggled to support her body, and subconsciously pinched her skin, thinking that she was dreaming. It wasn't until the severe pain spread all over her body that Orbia realized that it was not a dream, but reality. "How is this possible? Didn't I die?" Orbia's lips trembled uncontrollably as she said in disbelief. "Mother, it was young master who revived you." Tears flowed from the corners of Robin's eyes as she sobbed. He subconsciously looked at Dustless. In this strange and mysterious world, he was the only male. Naturally, the young master that Robin had mentioned was on the verge of popping out. "You are a celestial dragon?" Her pupils instantly dilated several times, and Orbia suddenly jumped out of the coffin, protecting Robin's body. Her blank eyes were also filled with vigilance. Through the small part of the emblem exposed on Dustless's left chest, she instantly saw through Dustless's origins. In this world, no one dares to pretend to be a celestial dragon. "Mother, you worry too much. Young master is indeed a celestial dragon, but there is an essential gap between him and those celestial dragons." Wiping the tears from the corner of his eyes, Robin indicated that there was no need to worry. "What do you know?" "I know the history of the celestial dragons better than you. They are actually the culprits who rule the world behind the scenes. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and the Navy are their lackeys." Orbia still did not relax her vigilance and looked at Dustless as if she was facing an enemy. Her eyes were locked on him. Celestial dragons were synonymous with evil in the eyes of the scholars. Their evil was worse than the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. "Don't be nervous if I want to do it. You are just a person who will return to the place where you came out before in a flash." The dead voice fell, and Dustless also disappeared. What a fast speed. Celestial dragons have such a level of character? Sensing the chilly wind behind her, Orbia suddenly turned her head. In her beautiful eyes, there was an expressionless Dustless. That cold gaze was filled with contempt, as if he could kill her in an instant with just a thought. Orbia's chest rose and fell uncontrollably, and her delicate face was shocked, filled with horror and dullness. Thinking of Mariehua's group of celestial dragons who only know how to eat, drink and poop, and then comparing it with Dustless in front of her, she suddenly felt that her previous worldview was gradually collapsing. "Don't think that you know everything. That's just your wishful thinking. This world is very big, and people who can know all his secrets are useless, and God is no exception." Glancing at Orbia, Dustless retracted his gaze and looked indifferently at the world in front of him. His pupils began to twist again, and the world in front of him began to change dramatically again. Once again, He returned to the previous stinky warehouse. Hancock and Robin were okay, after all, they had just experienced it once, but Orbia's face was directly frozen, and her whole person was motionless like a sculpture. Space instantly shifted, and she came to another world. Thinking about it, she had a ridiculous feeling that this was a dream. Don't be so surprised, I said before. The things you have seen before are just the tip of the iceberg of this world. Celestial dragons, Gorosei, 5 elder stars, including the navy, and the so-called Yonko for emperors. Maybe in the near future, they will disappear forever. The world is progressing, and those who indulge in the past can only be swept into the garbage dump of history. His deep eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the world, and Dustless's eyes burned with flames of ambition. Chapter 733. Robin's mother stared blankly at the back of Dustless, and suddenly felt that the world in front of her was dark, as if she had encountered a legendary madman or a psychopath. As a celestial dragon, he actually wanted to overthrow this decaying world. How could Orbia be calm? Robin, your young master is not a legendary madman. Otherwise, how could he overthrow his own rule? Orbia's eyes were filled with suspicion, and she had deep doubts about this. Hearing this, Robin didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at her surprised mother. She opened her mouth and wanted to persuade her carefully, but she found that she was speechless. To some extent, Dustless's approach was indeed crazy, and only an idiot would overthrow his own rule. The young master's heart is higher than the sky. How could he be willing to be that ridiculous celestial dragon? This narrow sky can't bind the young master who wants to spread his wings and rule the world with his own absolute strength. This is just the first step for the young master to set foot on the top. Compared with the dazed Robin and her mother, Hancock, who had been accompanying Dustless all year round, was clear about Dustless's true thoughts and his ambitions. In other words, celestial dragons enjoyed a godlike status in this world, and everyone must kneel down and not have any blasphemy in their hearts. This was also what Dustless wanted to pursue. But there were many people who had this status, and there was a large group of Mariehua. What Dustless wanted to do was to eradicate the group of people except himself. That was all. She's really a lunatic. How could she do such a crazy thing? She set herself on fire. Orbia's eyes widened as she said in disbelief. Even because she was too excited, her voice was a little sharp and harsh, making people uncomfortable with goosebumps. The young master can do it. Compared with the skeptical Orbia, Hancock, who had been with Dustless for many years, nodded firmly. No one knew better than her how capable her young master was. In terms of strength, Dustless was an invincible existence in the world, and the forces he'd gathered in secret were extraordinarily enormous. Moreover, they were all extremely outstanding existences with strengths that were 1 in 10,000 experts. Ordinary people were unable to enter Dustless's attention. Hancock's fanatical eyes infected Robin, and she also looked at Dustless's back with a face full of obedience. Robin, don't forget that you are an archaeologist. Seeing her baby daughter like this, Orbia said solemnly, and her voice was a little depressed. Speechless, our Orbia stared at Dustless's gradually dissipating back. She felt a headache coming on. As an archaeological researcher, she had to be careful and cautious about everything. The current Robin did not look like an outstanding archaeologist at all. Instead, he looked like a possessed religious follower. Their fervent gazes were filled with reverence as if they had seen a god. The world government is destined to be overthrown. This is not a coincidence, nor is it an accident, it's fate. Indifferently looking at the sun gradually setting in the distance, Dustless's eyes were particularly long and deep, carefully looking at the distant sky. His eyes seemed to see the surface of prosperity, but the inside was rotten to the bottom of Mariehua. From the time I appeared in this world, the sovereignty of this era began to change its name. Time passed by quickly. Unknowingly, 5 days had passed silently between the gaps of his fingers. Dustless also allowed Robin to join the Straw Hat Pirates. Before that, she used a strategy to break into the Straw Hat Pirates and became an inseparable member of them. Marine Headquarters. As the most righteous island in the world, Marin Island, the sky was always clear and cloudless. The serene atmosphere on the island was intoxicating. Compared to the other war-torn islands in the New World, it was simply a paradise. The news that Crocodile was killed spread all over the world like a storm, and the relatively calm sea suddenly set off stormy waves. The fall of a generation of heroes, the shock that spread was unprecedented, and the whole world fell into an explosion of public opinion, guessing who did it. Some things can't be concealed, and Sengoku didn't hide it and directly told the world the truth of the matter. Of course, the information about Pluton and the revolutionary army behind the scenes were all selectively concealed. Therefore, Dustless was inevitably pushed to the center of public opinion again. In the warm office, Dustless comfortably enjoyed the morning sun through the window, lazily arched his body, intending to take a nap, but suddenly there was a depressed sigh beside him. Garp, there's no need to be sad. Your grandson has a bounty of 100 million berries, and he defeated Crocodile. This is the government's recognition of his strength, and you should be happy. At this moment, Garp's face was black, and his old eyes sometimes shot a cold light. His big hands trembled slightly, and the bounty list he was holding was the smiling Luffy. The bounty has also risen from the original 30 million berries to 100 million berries. Luffy's strength has attracted the attention of the Marines since he defeated a veteran pirate like Crocodile. The bounty has more than doubled. Happy? His strength can improve and he defeated Crocodile. This old man is indeed gratified. Unfortunately, he has embarked on a path of no return. The complex and bleak sigh was filled with guilt and self-blame, and there was a little failure. Dorag stood on the opposite side of him and became the world's most evil wanted criminal. He hoped that Luffy would be able to wash away his shame and embark on the road of absolute justice. As a result, because of Red Hairshanks, he became a pirate that caused a sensation in the world. Chapter 734. Glancing at Garp's face, he seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. His face was slightly dirty, his back was bent, and he looked unusually old. Gazing at Garp with a little sympathy, this old guy is indeed a Marine, but as a family elder, he is indeed a failure. Garp wanted his son to become a dragon, but the result was the opposite. Dolag and Luffy were indeed dragons and phoenixes, but they stood on the opposite side of Garp. Crocodile has been removed from the list, and there are still 2 Shichibukai positions left. Sengoku doesn't seem to have a suitable candidate. Thinking of the vacant Shichibukai position, Dustless changed the topic. Dustless, who had intended to recommend his own people, shut up. If he doesn't say it, he may be promoted. If he says it, he may be excluded forever. Not for the time being. You also understand that the pirates suitable for Shichibukai, whether it is strength or influence, must reach a certain level, at least to deter the pirates of other seas. Garp also had a headache. Not everyone can be a Shichibukai. Some people who are not at ease with the government, including those who hate Marines, are even more disdainful of Shichibukai. That's right. Dustless nodded undeniably. His eyes quietly looked at the busy port below. On the wide playground, he saw the dense Marines, carrying out high-density training, sweating. Then he raised his eyes to the right and he could clearly see that the Marine Force's scientific force was sitting in intense repair work. The turret was updated, the defense was strengthened, and many underground mechanisms were being replaced. Although all this was done very secretly and no one in the outside world knows, Dustless, as an admiral of the Marine headquarters, knows it clearly. All of this indicates one thing. This era has gone berserk. These guys. It seems that they are going to attack one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Dustless secretly guessed while glancing at the silent Garp. There is no doubt that the strength of the Marine has expanded to an unprecedented level. The 4 admirals, including Dustless, have awed the entire sea and ushered in a new era. Apart from the 4 admirals, the top powerhouses in the Marine, including Sengoku and Garp, have reached the level of an admiral or even beyond the level of an admiral. They are enough to openly fight any Yonko, 4 emperors. After the Marines' strength reached a bottleneck, they would inevitably choose to attack the Yonko, 4 emperors. The Marines' task was originally to eliminate pirates all over the world. It was reasonable for Sengoku to take the initiative to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. Lienpa is old. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. The Whitebeard pirates were bright on the outside, but they were rotten on the inside. If Whitebeard fell, this pirate group that was almost unstoppable in the sea for an era was bound to collapse. The war between the Marines and Whitebeard is not an accident or a coincidence, but an inevitable result of various reasons. Yonko, 4 emperors, seem to be the strongest, but there is no doubt about it, but once Whitebeard is lost, this pirate group will be useless. Secondly, Whitebeard is an old man of the previous era. He is on par with the Pirate King Roger and Golden Lion Shiki. Roger and Golden Lion Shiki have both died, and the significance of destroying Whitebeard is self-evident. This era is out of control, and it will eventually lead to destruction. Looking at the busy figures below, Garp said with emotion. As a high-level Marine, he naturally knew why the Marines were so busy. Everything was to prepare for the future war. Whitebeard is old and weak, and it is best to use his blood to commemorate the end of the old era. My opinion is different. At this moment, Dustless suddenly opened his mouth and laughed, looking at the sky in the distance. I think this is the beginning of a new era. Winter goes and spring comes, and the destruction is also a new beginning. It seems that I have to give Fire Fist Ace to Sengoku in the near future. The hesitation in his eyes turned into determination, and Dustless decided in his heart. When one should be decisive, one should be decisive. As for Garp, Dustless could only apologize. Although their relationship was not bad, their standpoints were as different as heaven and earth. Dustless was a selfish person from beginning to end. He would never abandon his own plan for Garp. Somewhere on an island in the New World. Kik. How many ability users are there? The gloomy and arrogant laughter burst out, and the surrounding area has been turned into ruins, and the ground is bare, as if it has been swallowed up with bones, which is particularly terrible. The surrounding area is dead, and the corpses emitting black gas can be seen. Captain, when will we leave the Whitebeard pirates? Now there is no need to continue living under someone else's roof. We can be independent. It's really uncomfortable to listen to the command of the old man Whitebeard all day long. Looking closely, Blackbeard and his companions were gnawing on burnt barbecue. And the people who were being hunted around were the ability users that Blackbeard had sniped. After killing them one by one, he would devour their abilities and use them for himself. During this period of time, Blackbeard had been doing the same thing day after day. You are wrong. Temporary forbearance is not a kid. If you can't hold back your restless temper, then you are a kid. I have endured for decades, let alone a few days. As long as I think the opportunity is right, I will immediately attack Whitebeard and take his ability. Blackbeard's eyes glowed with a gloomy smile. Chapter 735. Blackbeard was surprisingly calm. He had been lurking in the Whitebeard pirates for decades. His anxious heart had been smoothed out and he could remain calm in the face of everything. If he wanted to succeed and become a person above others, he must first train a good mentality that would not be shaken even by thunder. Otherwise everything would be in vain. But we don't have to continue to hide. Whitebeard is a dying old man. His ambition have been dragged down by his overburdened body. Now is a good opportunity for us to replace him. Lafitte, who was dressed like a drama character, often played with a stick in his hand. Stupid! Blackbeard scolded with a straight face. Although he is usually very bold and can even turn a deaf ear to some things and completely hand it over to his subordinates, but now this is a matter of life and death. Obviously, he can't act recklessly. It's no problem to attack Whitebeard, but after that, we must find a suitable place to live. Blackbeard's face was gloomy, and his eyes were glowing green, burning with ambition that could devour the world. Don't forget, my goal is One Piece. Now, I don't even have enough crew. I can only rely on this broken raft to cross the sea. Thinking about it, Blackbeard couldn't help but get angry. His tone became more severe, and his resentment soared to the sky. He had ambitions as high as the sky. In Blackbeard's eyes, he was born to be the Pirate King. However, the cruel reality made Blackbeard feel helpless. Today, he didn't even find a decent companion. The captain's requirements are too high. Blackbeard's subordinate Baggins said. It's not that he didn't find a companion, but he was killed by Blackbeard for testing his skills. Even the other party's devil fruit was swallowed by Blackbeard in the end. In fact, I think it's good to have the other party. There are countless strong people there, and most of them are evil. They hate the Marine and are very reliable, but the difficulty seems to be a bit difficult. At this moment, Sniper Van Oka, who had been silently imprisoned, said with his eyes shining. His words attracted everyone's attention and they looked at Van Oka expectantly. Today's Blackbeard pirates are not out of the control of Whitebeard, and there are only a few people. Impel down, Van Oka said. The few crew members were stunned. They looked at Van Oka in astonishment. Then they nodded in unison. Although this idea was a little crazy, it was an undeniable fact. The prisoners in the deepest part of Impel Down are the most ferocious pirates in history, and their strength has reached a shocking level. Some people's history was directly erased because of their influence. It was as if they had never appeared. Dream on. Do you think the warden of Impel Down will let us break the prison? Lafitte, who was playing with his crutch, said contemptuously. I am afraid that before they even get close to Impel Down, there will be countless shells flying over. I can give it a try. At this moment, Blackbeard said ambitiously. At the same time, a huge plan suddenly formed in his mind. His eyes flickered back and forth, as if he was considering the feasibility of the plan. As long as you join Shichibukai and get this identity, it is estimated that it will not be difficult to get in and out of Impel Down. The prisoners inside are the best candidates to join my pirate group. Hey 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 hey. After that, Blackbeard laughed arrogantly and unscrupulously. His fanatical eyes seemed to have seen the future, and the Blackbeard pirates swept through the new world. It's not as simple as you think. Don't forget that there is that man. It's not that simple to join Shichibukai. Sniper Van Oka's voice was slightly panicked. Dustless's figure was uncontrollably reflected in his mind, and the scene of crushing him and Blackbeard, as well as Fire Fist Ace, was vivid in his mind. This? Blackbeard's expression suddenly solidified and froze, replaced by an unprecedented dignified look, and even his shining eyes were filled with fear. Even if he tries to hide it and keep calm, his uncontrollable body is full of loopholes. There was a soul-deep fear towards Dustless. That kind of overwhelming power that was close to destroying the world was beyond imagination. Even Whitebeard would have no chance of surviving if he faced him. I am not his opponent in this state. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Blackbeard affirmed. The abilities of these corpses have been swallowed by him. Now Blackbeard has dozens of abilities. Even so, he does not think that he is Dustless's opponent. The unparalleled ultimate strength is like a rock that makes him breathless. The gap between the two sides is no exaggeration to say that it is a different dimension. Hey 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 hey! His eyes suddenly flashed with light, and Blackbeard's plan came to his mind, and he grinned and laughed wildly. Captain you! Several members looked at Blackbeard speechlessly. This guy is always so inexplicable. Hey hey! Am I not the son of the old man? In the future, I can surpass him. He should be very happy. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Blackbeard gritted his teeth and said, I can personally send him to his death, and he can rest in peace in the underworld. He already has a perfect plan in his heart. Naturally, there are conditions to become a Shichibukai. And Blackbeard's condition is to attack Whitebeard. Attacking Whitebeard will definitely lead to being driven out of the Whitebeard pirates and being wanted by the Whitebeard pirates. And it happens that he can become a candidate for Shichibukai for this reason. If he dares to attack Whitebeard and can leave safely, he is bound to be valued by the government, and the position of Shichibukai will be easily obtained. Chapter 736. Marlin. Marine Headquarters. 7 days later, Hancock had left early and returned to Mariehua, while Dustless was delayed for 7 days due to some special reasons. He is just an admiral with an idle position. Any task is completely at will. If he wants to accept it, he can accept it. If he feels upset, he can refuse it directly, but he still has to participate in some necessary things and meetings. The fleet admiral asked you to attend a special meeting. Wu Chen, who was about to get on the boat, suddenly stopped. He turned his head and looked at Akiji behind him. He could not help but frown. There was a trace of suspicion in his mind, but thinking of the worrying naughty girl at home, he still intended to refuse. Sorry, I have something to do in my family. You know that troublemaker. Dustless shrugged his shoulders and explained helplessly. Hearing this, Akiji nodded. He also heard a little about the troublemaker in Dustless's family. Mariehua Tenryubito was tossed around by the little girl. It doesn't matter, it will take you 10 minutes, and this meeting is very special. I am afraid it is the first time in the history of the Marine. With a mysterious smile, Akiji kept him in suspense. The first time in the history? Dustless frowned slightly, and immediately his eyes flashed with curiosity. After becoming an admiral, he has participated in many kinds of meetings. The first meeting in the history of the Marine is the first time he has heard of it, and curiosity is inevitable in his heart. Since it's only 10 minutes, it's no big deal. Walking back to the port, Dustless nodded. In the corridor of the Marine headquarters, Dustless and Akiji walked side by side, surrounded by soldiers with meticulous faces. At first glance, they were the elite of the elite. What kind of meeting is it? It looks quite mysterious. Looking at the soldiers around him, Dustless was surprised. This sudden and mysterious meeting was indeed a little unusual. It's not going to be a big shot coming. It's actually like this. Is this a demonstration? After being a Marine admiral for more than 10 years, Dustless naturally knows that these soldiers are extraordinary. They are full of energy, their faces are red, and their bodies are full of murderous aura. At first glance, they are veterans of the battlefield. Big shot? Is there anyone in the Marine who is bigger than you? Akiji asked sarcastically. Dustless is a Tenryubito and his status is above the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. There is no doubt that in the whole world, only Mariehua's Tenryubito can match him. Even Mariehua's Tenryubito is far inferior. After all, Dustless is a Tenryubito and has shocking strength. Only one's own strength was the guarantee of everything. Ka. Opening the door of the conference room, a group of Marine big shots were clearly visible, so everyone nodded to Dustless. After more than 10 years of getting along, everyone was barely acquainted. Dustless walked towards the seat that belonged to the great general. This meeting may be a little abrupt, but because it involves too many things, I can only summon everyone here at the last minute. After seeing Dustless take his seat, Sengoku said in a deep voice, "As for the reason for this incident, it's about the candidates for the Shichibukai." Sengoku's words made everyone stunned, and they looked at him without understanding. Including Dustless, he frowned slightly. He didn't remember that there was a Shichibukai in this period, and because of him, the whole world was in a mess, and many things have been derailed from the original work. The candidate who is about to join the Shichibukai, Sengoku's eyes spread out, with a hidden smile on his mouth, he took everyone's expression into his eyes and said aloud, "His name is Marshal D. Titch, nicknamed Blackbeard." Sengoku said with a bright smile on his face, with a bit of conspiracy. When his voice fell, except for a few people, everyone else showed a thoughtful expression, recalling the information of Blackbeard, but they were surprised to find that they had never heard of this guy. Since you don't know Captain, let me explain the experience of Captain Blackbeard. At this moment, a stranger's voice suddenly sounded outside the window, and then a mysterious man with white wings behind him flew in. Lafitte! With ripples in his eyes, Dustless recognized him instantly when he saw the man appear. Ha! A mere pirate is so bold. Just because you broke into the conference room, I can execute you. Staring at Lafitte, Akainu said hoarsely and his tone was hot. Sengoku's face was also filled with dissatisfaction. He had carefully prepared a plan to establish his prestige, but it was ruined by the sudden invasion of this kid. This old guy is so naive. Dustless's eyes were helpless, and he finally understood what those energetic Marines were. He was afraid that Sengoku had deliberately arranged it to establish his prestige. But he didn't expect this guy's ability to be so strange that he flew in directly through the window. No wonder Akiji said that this was the first meeting in history. This guy can participate in the high-level meeting of the Marine as a pirate. It is indeed the first time. Looking at Lafitte with interest, Dustless had a small smile on his face. Like Akainu, an absolute hawk in the Marine, usually with the Shichibukai, he felt insulted. Now a pirate suddenly appeared, he can't turn a blind eye to it. Chapter 737. Akainu's ruthlessness is well known to the world. Sometimes he shows the style of an executioner. For pirates, he has an unforgettable hatred and disgust. He can't wait to slaughter all the pirates in the world. The still cool space heated up sharply, Akainu was boiling, and the tiger's eyes under the brim of his hat were cold, and the killing intent almost turned into a substantial killing intent. If you want to do it, wait for me to finish. But at that time, I'm afraid you'll thank me. Lafitte is obviously not immortal. In the face of the coercion of an admiral, he was unusually calm, with an elegant smile on his face. Waving his hand, Sengoku motioned Akainu to sit down. His wise eyes looked at Lafitte, and he couldn't help but frown. Because of Dustless's reminder, he also paid more attention to Blackbeard. It's best not to be a boring reason. Otherwise you... His sharp eyes glanced at Lafitte, and Akainu returned to his seat. For pirates, whether big or small, Akainu has deep disgust and hatred. Every time he encounters a pirate, it's like encountering a deadly enemy, and he can't help but destroy and melt the other party. Seeing Akainu settle down, Lafitte was also relieved. Akainu is a wolf-like character. He is also afraid, especially now that he is deep in the wolf's den. If he is not careful, he will be swallowed. Lafitte glanced at Akainu's side. However, Wuxia also noticed Lafitte's eyes and gave him a gentle smile. This guy, Lafitte frowned. He always felt that Dustless's smile was full of different meaning, as if he was looking at a clown, which made him unable to control the flames of anger in his heart. Although he was smiling, he always maintained a contemptuous and indifferent look, as if he was looking at a mouse, full of disdain. Every dog has its day. Wait and see. Thinking of Blackbeard's instructions, Lafitte still wisely restrained his anger. This is the Marine headquarters. If he wants to make trouble, he will be killed by this group of terrifying characters. The three admirals, including Dustless, Vice Admiral Garp, and Fleet Admiral Sengoku, are fierce predators standing at the top of the pyramid. If he put up a little resistance, he would be easily killed by them. Tell me the conditions of that Blackbeard guy. You know that not everyone can enter the 7 warlords of the sea. It is necessary to deter the strength of a pirate. Sengoku said expressionlessly. Lafitte smiled faintly, restraining the panic in his heart. He calmly looked at the Marine. Captain's condition for joining Shichibukai is to attack the man with the white beard. Lafitte's words were like a stone falling into the sea, stirring up thousands of waves. Who was Whitebeard? He was recognized as the strongest man in the world. He was still regarded as a mythical existence. No one could shake his position as the Overlord. Despite the sudden rise of Dustless, he was called the strongest and youngest admiral in the history of the Navy, but the world still thinks that Edward Newgate is the strongest man in the world. After all, Whitebeard has been famous for a long time, and Dustless is just a latecomer. Whitebeard is also the strongest person who has ever fought with Roger. His strength has reached an unprecedented level. Even now, he is over 50 years old and his strength is the first in the world. He has been a legend in the world, and he is respected as the invincible god of war. That guy wants to attack Whitebeard? Just by Blackbeard? It's not too late to go home and practice for more than 10 years to challenge Whitebeard. This kind of idiot joke is meaningless. After a moment of sluggishness, Akainu sneered loudly, and his face was full of contempt. If it weren't for the existence of Fleet Admiral Sengoku, who knows if he would have killed this brainless person. Although Whitebeard is old now, his strength is still terrifying. Destroying an island is a simple matter for him. Dream on! All the Marine executives looked at Lafitte with disdain, full of sarcasm and naked contempt. Whitebeard is a godlike existence. If he was so easy to defeat, he would have been erased, let alone become a yonko for emperors. Seeing everyone looking at him sarcastically, Lafitte didn't care. He just passed on Blackbeard's words. He didn't need to worry about anything else. He just wanted to get Sengoku's promise, but he expected Sengoku to agree. Of course, if he really dares to attack Whitebeard, I can guarantee in the name of Fleet Admiral that Blackbeard Marshal D. Titch will become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Sengoku patted his chest and vowed, although his eyes were full of sarcasm. However, since Whitebeard and Blackbeard are going to kill each other, Sengoku will certainly not stop them. If Blackbeard can succeed, he will become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. On the contrary, if Blackbeard is killed, Marine will not suffer any loss. Failure and success are not important. Anyway, for Sengoku, as long as he can cause conflict between Whitebeard's pirates and weaken Whitebeard's strength, it is a victory. Moreover, even if Blackbeard wasn't Blackbeard's opponent, his crew was helpless against Blackbeard. Unexpectedly, I took Fire Fist Ace and Blackbeard chose this extreme way. For the position of Shichibukai, he really went all out. Dustless secretly sighed and couldn't help but sweat for Blackbeard's crazy actions. This kid is completely playing with his life. Chapter 738. The Marine headquarters has always been happy to see pirates killing each other. Blackbeard is willing to face the sword without fear of death. Naturally, Sengoku will not refuse his kindness. Instead, he will be happy to help Blackbeard fulfill his dream. That ambitious man has swallowed a lot of people recently, and his control of the dark fruit has also improved. This time, he used tricks to attack. It seems that the old guy Whitebeard won't have it easy. Dustless secretly guessed. It was common knowledge that Blackbeard was extremely confident in doing things, and he deeply believed that caution was the parent of safety. Unless he had no other choice, he would absolutely not expose himself. Once he launches an attack, it means that Blackbeard has enough confidence, or he has thought about the future retreat. Lafitte smiled at the contempt of Sengoku and Dustless. He also thinks that Blackbeard's idea is whimsical. But what can he do? The key is that Sengoku has agreed to Blackbeard's conditions. Regardless of the final success or failure, the position of Shichibukai will be given to Tich. That's enough. It doesn't matter. As Blackbeard often said, bow your head and wait for an opportunity. There's no need to be angry. Everyone. At this moment, Lafitte's eyes suddenly focused on Dustless's body, and a deep smile appeared on his face as if he was planning something. His eyes shot a cunning light with a hint of conspiracy. Hurry up and leave. This is not your stage. We are not your audience. No one likes to watch your clumsy acting. Don't stay and pollute the air. Otherwise, I don't mind being a cleaner to deal with atmospheric pollution. Akainu shouted impatiently, with a tone of warning and killing intent, and he hated pirates deeply. Dustless couldn't help but smile when he heard this. He looked at the gloomy Sakazuki in surprise. He didn't expect this guy to have such a humorous side. Lafitte heard this and then said with a smile, I have painstakingly prepared the script. I believe that you will be looking forward to it and will be shocked. Lafitte lowered his tone and said with a hint of flattery. He was in a tiger's den. He really didn't have the confidence to be tough. There are many strong people here who can kill him in 10 moves. If you have something to say, say it. I hope it's not something boring. Don't forget that a promise is not an admission. Before Blackbeard attacked Whitebeard, he was always a pirate, and you are no exception. With a cold light in his eyes, Sengoku said indifferently, and his words revealed the meaning of coercion. Lafitte breathed a sigh of relief and took a deep breath to stabilize his mind. He was really afraid that Akainu would throw him out unreasonably. Everyone knows that Fire Fist Ace has mysteriously disappeared. These days, Whitebeard has been racking his brains for him. He's been frantically searching for traces of Ace. The person who actually caught Ace is among you. Lafitte's words were shocking. This guy is really cunning. No, this guy wouldn't be able to think of such a plan. It's probably that schemer Blackbeard's sinister idea. Ripples appeared in his calm eyes. Dustless already understood what Lafitte was about to say. The high-level Marines present were all sluggish. They could see the surprise in each other's eyes. Lafitte was deep in the wolf's den. Naturally, it was impossible for him to talk nonsense. Their eyes looked at Wu Chen at the same time. In the entire Marine, this guy is the only one who is outwardly complying but inwardly opposing, one thing on the surface and another in the dark. Yes, Fire Fist Ace is indeed in my hands. The last time I went to East Blue to perform a mission, I accidentally heard his trace and finally caught the kid. Dustless smiled cheerfully and admitted everything, which was out of character. However, that kid resisted fiercely and was severely injured by me. Everyone knows that it's useless to kill him, so he's still in a coma and has been recuperating. How could he admit it? Lafitte's face was sluggish. He naively thought that Dustless would fiercely refute him. After all, it was not a small crime to hide a pirate. Even an admiral could not avoid heavy punishment. The photo that Lafitte was about to take out was put back into his trouser pocket. It was the irrefutable evidence of Dustless holding Fire Fist Ace that day. Lafitte originally thought that Dustless would deny it and then jump out to expose him. Now that Dustless chose to admit it, it also means that the photo has lost its effect. Idiot! Dustless sneered. To be honest, Dustless was quite grateful to Lafitte. He was worried that there was no suitable opportunity to give Fire Fist Ace to Sengoku. Now that Lafitte suddenly attacked, it was in line with Dustless's plan. In such a sudden situation, Sengoku will not think about it, and he will not think that this is Dustless's plan. If he directly handed Fire Fist Ace to Sengoku, Sengoku will inevitably be suspicious. When the kid recovers and can walk, I will send someone to send him to impel down. Wu Chen said lightly. His words revealed magnanimity and calmness, without any hint of nostalgia. His straightforward and decisive tone was capable and concise, without the slightest hint of scheming. Sengoku nodded with satisfaction and his eyes fell on Lafit again. What else do you have to say? His light tone was as stable as a rock. Obviously, Sengoku was very satisfied with Dustless's answer. No, this is not what I expected. Lafit was speechless by Sengoku's relaxed tone. He was so depressed that he vomited blood. This scene was within his expectations, but the ending was so hasty that it was completely different from what he had expected. In particular, Sengoku's calm appearance made Lafit even more crazy. How can a Marine Admiral hide a pirate? This is not scientific. Chapter 739. Lafit's old face was blue and there were signs of turning green. Looking at the scene in front of him, it seemed that he didn't react for a while. His eyes were empty and gray and his mind was blank. What is this? A Marine Admiral is hiding a pirate, and it's a big pirate like Fire Fist Ace. Sengoku not only did not punish him but he didn't even blame him. It was too obvious that they were purposely going easy on him, especially when everyone was acting so relaxed and indifferent. It was obvious that they were already used to this kind of situation. What is this guy's background? Lafit's heart beat violently. The corner of his mouth trembled uncontrollably. The frequency of his heartbeat accelerated as if it was about to break out of his chest, and his pale skin became red. This is not Sengoku's heart is higher than the sky, but the guy in front of him is obviously unusual. This kind of thing may fall on Admiral Akainu and Akiji and it will be another matter, but it falls on Dustless as if it's nothing. Sure enough, as Akainu said, a poor script, and a third-rate actor with bad acting skills. Dustless looked at the stunned Lafit with disdain. He had long understood what this guy's intention was, or what Blackbeard behind him wanted. It's nothing more than taking this opportunity to pull Dustless down. He even hopes to use this as an excuse to imprison Dustless in a dark place like Impel Down. However, all this is just a plan, and it's really different from reality. Wasting the old man's time. Is your gorgeous performance so rough? It's better for this old man to put on a bright bonfire banquet. Akainu, who was indifferent by nature, stood up. His whole body was emitting hot crimson magma, and his eyes were cold. Although he is Blackbeard's subordinate, what can he do? After all, Blackbeard is not a Shichibukai. Blackbeard has not attacked Whitebeard, which means that the treaty is not effective for the time being. It's just a verbal agreement, which shows that this guy is still a pirate. Even if he kills him, Blackbeard will have nothing to say. Who dares to break into the Marine headquarters alone? Lafit's forehead was full of black lines as if he had fallen into an ice cave. His heart was full of despair. He suddenly felt like an idiot. He thought that because he was Blackbeard's envoy, the Marines would not embarrass him. Lafit's heart was cold. All the Marines' high-level officials looked indifferent, and their expressionless faces were full of indifference. Obviously, if Akainu really killed him, these people would look at him coldly. Pirates don't need to pay attention to morality or sympathy. Sit down, Sakazuki. Sengoku frowned. Although he appreciated Sakazuki's decisiveness, it was too reckless. Simple force can't solve everything, and pirates can never be killed. Moreover, the position of Marine Fleet Admiral often requires more strategic vision and wisdom than ordinary people. Strength is secondary. After all, there is no Fleet Admiral to fight. To a certain extent, the existence of the 7 warlords of the sea is to control evil with evil. You can leave now. Remember to repeat what I just said to Blackbeard. Sengoku glanced at Lafit and then waved his hand casually. Lafit went back to where he came from. All in all, the Marine headquarters does not welcome him. It is a blasphemy for a mere pirate to set foot in Marlin. Lafit pretended to be calm and nodded his head. Soon after, his dark and cold eyes quietly spread out and took in the faces of everyone present. It was as if he wanted to engrave them in his heart forever so that he could take revenge in the future. Of course, the main line of sight is still focused on Dustless. Dustless entered the eyes, and there was always a calm and elegant smile on the corner of his mouth, and the handsome and slightly immature face remained unchanged. There will be a day when the Blackbeard pirates will double back. Lafitte swore fiercely in his heart, and he recondensed his wings behind him and flew out of the window, leaving this place forever. In all fairness, he didn't want to come to this place full of depression. Even if Blackbeard really became one of the 7 warlords of the sea in the future, he didn't want to come to this tiger's den. In front of these people, if you don't have the strength to match them, you will only humiliate yourself. For example, before, Lafitte himself was like a funny clown actor, trying his best to perform an act, but the audience of Dustless mercilessly gave him a bad review. "It's outrageous. Bastard Titch, that guy." Lafitte's face trembled. By now, he already knew that the respected captain was a scapegoat. There was no doubt that Blackbeard was afraid of entering the tiger's den, so he arranged for him to be the scapegoat. Time flew by. About half an hour later, the boring meeting was over, and the people gradually left. Marlin opened his mouth. When Dustless was about to return to Mariehua by boat, a powerful roar exploded in his ears. Turning his head, it was Garp. "Ace. It turns out that he has been caught and hidden by you. No wonder Whitebeard has been sad all day. Ace and you should have no direct conflict. Why did you do that?" Glancing at the indignant Garp with a cold gaze, Wu Chen pursed his lips into a smile. "Do you have to do that? The reason is very simple. Because I am a Tenryu Bito, Fire Fist Ace is a D. Because I am a Marine, he is a pirate, I and Fire Fist Ace are enemies. This is not an opposing relationship, but fate." Chapter 740. Do you have to do that? The reason is very simple. Because I am a Tenryu Bito, Fire Fist Ace is a D. Because I am a Marine, he is a pirate. I and Fire Fist Ace are natural enemies. This is not an antagonistic relationship, but fate. The clanging words resounded in Garp's ears. The corners of his mouth wriggled. He wanted to refute, but he suddenly realized that he had nothing to say. Just like what Dustless said, this was not a simple antagonistic relationship, but a conflict between 2 races. There is no need to deliberately create hatred. It is completely unnecessary. Tenryu Bito and D-race are mortal enemies. This is a contradiction inherited from countless years ago. With the passage of time, the contradiction between the 2 races has not slowed down and disappeared, but with the prolonged precipitation of time, it has become more unforgettable and has evolved to the point where it has even reached the point where it will not stop until one of them dies. Every famous pirate with D in his name is the focus of the Marine and the world government. If the threat is too great, or the potential of the future is infinite, the world government will send high-end battle power to annihilate him. Dustless still clearly remembers that Straw Hat Luffy in the original work was attacked by an admiral, but later Akiji let go of the Straw Hat pirates for other reasons. What an incompetent Marine admiral. Dustless also often heard the legend of D in Mariehua. Some Tenryu Bito who can barely be regarded as respectable look at D-race as a devil. The once famous pirate king, Gold Roger, was the existence of Mariehua's taboo. In short, whether it was for public or private reasons, Dustless had the right to arrest Fire Fist Ace. "I want to see him." Garp aged a lot in an instant, his eyes were cloudy, and his powerful voice was weak. Obviously, the news of Ace's arrest hit Garp hard, like a thunderbolt, causing him to have a mental breakdown. The old eyes were full of helplessness. "He was hit hard by me, and his consciousness fell into a coma," Dustless said blankly as he looked at Garp's stooped and tired eyes. Dustless's cold eyes only have endless indifference and coldness. He is not a saint. For the enemy, the idea of rooting out the roots has long been ingrained in him. Dustless will not sympathize with him. "What will you do with Ace?" Garp's mouth trembled as he said decadently. For Dustless, Garp can't raise the slightest hatred. It is a matter of course for Marines to catch pirates. If this kind of thing happened to him, maybe he would catch Ace at all costs. The path of no return to be a pirate was chosen by Fire Fist Ace himself, and no one forced him. He can only blame himself for going astray. This is his own fault. He can't blame others. What Wu Chen did was the duty and obligation of the Marine. "It's not what I will do. You should ask Sengoku." Fire Fist Ace will be locked up and impelled down when he recovers, but according to Sengoku's character, you know better than me how he will deal with Ace. Dustless said. Sengoku's cunning and insidious nature is well known. The friendship between Garp and Sengoku is self-evident. The two of them have witnessed the rise and fall of Marines together. They have worked together to deal with pirates for decades. Their personal relationship is beyond imagination. Sengoku. That guy won't be merciful. He will punish him publicly and use Ace to trap the Whitebeard pirates. Garp sighed helplessly with a sad tone. It is because he knows Sengoku too well that Garp feels desperate. Dustless nodded non-committally. Whitebeard was terminally ill, and Sengoku took advantage of the situation. It is understandable to use Whitebeard's blood as a sacrifice to commemorate the end of the previous era. After all, Sengoku used to do this kind of thing before, so he was called Wise Admiral by the world. But the only difference is that the protagonist of this incident has become Garp's grandson, the son of Pirate King Roger. Dustless's clear eyes witnessed Garp's dispirited look, and his bones and blood seemed to have been taken away by someone, leaving only skin and bones. He couldn't help but sigh. In all fairness, it is indeed cruel and ruthless to this Marine veteran who has dedicated his life to Marine and the government. In Garp's eyes, Ace is no different from his grandson. Blood is thicker than water, and it is false that he is not sad. You're on your own, Garp. Dustless withdrew his gaze from the depressed Garp and stepped on the battleship to Mariehua. The world is changeable, and sometimes fate is twisted and bizarre, and the appalling thing of killing each other is not unique. This era has gone berserk. Garp murmured in a daze. Even if he can wipe out the Whitebeard pirates, whether it is a blessing or a curse, only God knows. Maybe what awaits the world is not a sunny day, but an unprecedentedly more ferocious pirate. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Garp. His silent eyes burned with ambition, enough to swallow the sky and devour the earth, and his whole face was a little red. The change of era is inevitable. Everything in the future is changeable. However, one thing is certain. The struggle for hegemony in the sea area in the future will be more dangerous than the previous chaotic era. Among the countless ambitious and ruthless people, only one person can stand out. The dead eyes splashed with stormy waves, and the edge of the wave was the edge of the world. Dustless's goal is always this world. The loss of the island is meaningless. There are as many islands in this world as there are stars in the sky. No one can calculate how many islands there are. Every day, islands disappear because of fierce fighting or are annihilated in other ways. Chapter 741. Dustless can naturally understand Garp's feelings and discomfort. In this world, blood is the only thing that is hard to give up. Garp regards Fire Fist Ace as his grandson. His own grandson was about to be sentenced to death, and not only was Garp unable to save him, he could only watch silently. It was easy to imagine how he would feel about this. Dustless, Sama. On the blue sea, the giant battleship cut through the thorns and brambles, braving the wind and waves, and rapidly sailed in the direction of Mariehua, setting off huge waves. On the spacious deck, Dustless looked at the distant sea. His eyes were in a trance as he seemed to be immersed in memories. He was enjoying the sea breeze. Next to him was White Zetsu. Nico Robin has successfully infiltrated the Straw Hat Pirates, White Zetsu reported. Dustless opened his eyes when he heard the words, and the empty eye sockets regained their light. Robin is smart and shrewd. I expected that she would be able to break into the pirate group. The Straw Hat Pirates are strong, but their members are no exception. Almost all of them are idiots, so it's easy for them to sneak in. It's just a third-rate pirate group. Why is Dustless, Sama so persistent? If you want, it's not difficult to insert your men into the Yonko, 4 emperors. Staring at Dustless's messy hair, White Zetsu was puzzled. The current Straw Hat Pirates are ordinary. They don't have any bright spots. They are just strong. I arranged for Robin to go in just to find the ridiculous poneglyph. As for other purposes, that kind of hot-blooded hothead won't live long. Wu Chen said with a calm expression and a steady aura. Dustless won't be at ease if Robin goes alone. In that case, it's better to use the Straw Hat Pirates to provide a layer of protection for the hot-blooded youths. He taught Luffy a lesson a while ago just to enhance his motivation and let him understand the cruelty of the world. But it is undeniable that the Straw Hat Pirates are really powerful. In just a few days, They ran to the Sky Island. White Zetsu suddenly said with a little appreciation in his tone and a rare smile on his face. Dustless was stunned when he heard this. He immediately thought of a miserable god on the Sky Island and could not help but feel a little sympathy. It was his bad luck to meet a rubberman like Luffy. The powerful ability of Rumble Rumble Fruit was almost completely restrained. But Enel's Devil Fruit. Speaking of this, White Zetsu's voice suddenly stopped, with fanaticism in his eyes. That guy's Rumble Rumble Fruit is called the Fruit of Invincibility. It's better to bring Enel into the group. White Zoo suggested to Dustless. He was so excited that he thought the plan was feasible. You mean Enel? Closing his eyes and recalling Enel's past, Dustless's reaction to White Zetsu's proposal was mediocre. That guy's strength is average. It is estimated that he is only at the level of a quasi-admiral. This kind of person is not qualified to be my subordinate. There is no doubt that Rumble Rumble Fruit is powerful. It is known as the most powerful fruit of Logia. It is more powerful than Dustless's Glint Fruit. But even so, he was defeated by Luffy. Although it was due to his ability being restrained, Enel's defeat was an undeniable fact. Losing to Luffy because of his ability was restrained. This reason could not convince Dustless. In the final analysis, it was because Enel was not a good person. And do you think a person who dreams of becoming a god all day long will be willing to serve me? Dustless's words made White Zoo speechless. After a moment of contemplation, the thoughts in his heart were extinguished. Enel was such an ambitious person. It was a fool's dream to want to tame him. Even if he was killed, he may not submit to Dustless. However, Rumble Rumble Fruit can't be wasted in vain. It is also the invincible fruit. If it were someone else, the power would be beyond imagination. Dustless's head suddenly raised, and his shining eyes pierced through the layers of white clouds, as if he saw Enel countless miles away, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a cold smile. Dustless, Sama is going to kill Enel directly? White Zetsu was surprised, and his tone was a little stunned. It is not difficult to hear that Dustless's murderous look is obvious that he wants to kill Enel directly. In this way, a new Rumble Rumble Fruit will be born from some corner of the world. It is only a matter of time before White Zetsu finds Rumble Rumble Fruit. Straw Hat Luffy doesn't seem to be able to kill him. That kid is too kind to kill Enel. White Zetsu frowned and scolded Luffy for being incompetent. He didn't have the ruthless style of a pirate. When Luffy defeated Crocodile, he could have killed him on the spot. The same was true for Arlong, but that kid was merciful and let him go. That kid is really unqualified. He is completely different from other pirates. Dustless could not deny it. Luffy is a pirate, and his bounty is now as high as 100 million berries, but the bad things he has done can be counted on one hand. He has never done that kind of crazy massacre in a city. For other ferocious pirates, they often do this kind of thing. Leave it to Hawkeye. If it's him, then Enel will die. I think he's also curious about the legendary Thunderclap Fruit. He didn't have the time to go to the Sky Island to play. He just sent Hawkeye to clean him up. Hawkeye was bored for a while, and this is a disguised way to relieve boredom. Chapter 742. But then again, raising his eyebrows slightly, Wu Chen's tone suddenly became low and cold light flashed in his eyes. Blackbeard is a coward. He can be regarded as a peerless hero, but he dares to sneak attack Whitebeard. With appreciation in his mouth, he quite admires Blackbeard's courage, but everyone can hear the contempt and disdain in his voice. It's not that Dustless underestimates Blackbeard. Maybe he can surpass Whitebeard in the future, but now the gap is not small. Challenging Whitebeard is tantamount to asking for fire. A skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Blackbeard with thin arms and legs will be crushed sooner or later by the behemoth Whitebeard. Maybe he used the dark fruit to plunder some heaven-defying devil fruit? Thinking of Blackbeard's dark fruit's ability, White Zetsu speculated. Dustless glanced at White Zetsu and immediately shook his head in denial. In the face of absolute strength, no ability can play a decisive role. The invincible Tremor Fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, and Whitebeard's tempered tricolor Haki are enough to deal with all unexpected situations. Even if Blackbeard really found a special devil fruit and swallowed it, what devil fruit is more heaven-defying than Whitebeard's Tremor Fruit, Gura Gura no Mi? Blackbeard is not a good stubble. When a tiger meets a hungry wolf, even if he can't fight him, he will tear him apart. Dustless gloated. There is no doubt that Blackbeard can't beat Whitebeard, but the cunning Blackbeard's biggest feature is his calculation, and the careless Whitebeard can't avoid the ending of being injured. After all, Blackbeard has the upper hand, and Whitebeard, who is completely unknown, is passive and will inevitably suffer losses. Somewhere in the New World, there is a large battleship docked near an island with a strange shape. In the whole world, only this battleship has such a strange structure. Moby Dick. It is also Whitebeard's own ship that has accompanied him in his life. Although the main battlefield of pirates is fighting at sea, as a land creature, human beings also need to often rest on land, otherwise, their physique will be worn down. On Moby Dick, only Whitebeard was sitting alone in a spacious seat, and the other crew members were resting on nearby islands. During this time, the entire Whitebeard pirates were looking for traces of Ace. The high-density intense work made everyone annoyed and all of them were in a trance. The helpless Whitebeard could only order a day's rest. Beside him were several large wine jars, but there was nothing inside. Whitebeard's eyes were blank, and his rough weather-beaten face was a little red. Obviously, he was a little drunk. Fire Fist Ace's disappearance was a huge blow to him. He had been drowning his sorrows in alcohol these days to numb his nerves. Ka ka ka. Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps on the empty deck. Whitebeard subconsciously raised his head, and the scene reflected in his eyes was an ugly person with an open belly and a belly full of dense chest hair. Titch! The blurry Whitebeard opened his eyes, and his eyes regained their clarity. In front of his sons, Whitebeard had to remain calm and collected at all times. Whitebeard knows that he is the brain of the entire pirate group, and he can't be confused about the future. I heard that your strength is improving by leaps and bounds. I plan to promote you to the captain of the 4th Division in a while. With a gentle smile on his face, Whitebeard affirmed. Only those who were capable would be able to survive. This was a principle that had never changed. The old man is still holding on. Observing Whitebeard, who was forcing a smile without a trace, Blackbeard despised him in his heart. Even though Blackbeard's father had taken good care of him in all aspects and treated him like his own son, Blackbeard could only say that he was apologetic. His ambition is the whole world, and there are countless dreams that have not been realized, not the small Whitebeard pirates, and it is impossible for him to be Whitebeard's son all his life. Thank you, father. It has to be said that Blackbeard, who has been in disguise for decades, has already practiced beyond the acting style of the movie Emperor. He pretended to be flattered and knelt in front of Whitebeard, and crystal tears squeezed out of the corners of his eyes and continued to fall. Thank you. You and I are father and son. These are superfluous. If you need any help in the future, just say it in time. Whitebeard said with a kind smile. He stretched out his giant arm and patted Blackbeard on the shoulder. He was going to lift Blackbeard, who was kneeling on the ground and crying. Although this guy is ugly as a pig, in Whitebeard's eyes, he is his son, and everyone is treated equally. But then Whitebeard frowned. He was surprised to find that his arm was grabbed by a strong and powerful rough arm, and the strength was no worse than an admiral's. Blackbeard's wailing suddenly stopped, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. The person who grabbed Whitebeard's hand was him. My respected father, of course I need your help. Since you're so generous, as your son, I won't refuse. Please, go to hell right now. At this moment, after Blackbeard's voice fell, his huge body jumped up, and his right arm, full of explosive power, went straight towards Whitebeard's head. His big hand turned dark black, and in this blow, he obviously has the ability of dark fruit. It is not difficult to see that he intends to kill Whitebeard with one blow. Chapter 743. It happened so suddenly that even if Whitebeard is a god, he can calculate everything, but he is helpless against people. No one would expect that his son, who has been filial for many years, would take the opportunity to attack him and raise a cruel butcher's knife against him. The strong dark waves wrapped around Whitebeard's entire face, and Blackbeard's powerful force, like Mount Tai, hit Whitebeard's face. The whole battleship trembled violently and set off a huge shock. With the sea near Moby Dick as the center, large ripples splashed on the calm sea and crazily spread to the surrounding sea. Even with Whitebeard's strength, he was hit by this powerful sneak attack. Black smoke filled his face, and a few drops of scarlet blood fell uncontrollably. Obviously, this powerful force hurt Whitebeard. Hey! My respected father, how powerful is this dark fruit? In order to get it, I have been lurking in the Whitebeard pirates for decades. Blackbeard said with a gloomy smile. His big mouth opened and a fishy smell came out, as if he hadn't brushed his teeth for many years, and the air around him was filled with a pungent and disgusting smell. Blackbeard excitedly shook his arms. He looked like a villain who had achieved his goal. He was extremely arrogant. At the same time, this huge sneak attack and the violent shock caused by it immediately attracted the attention of the other members of the Whitebeard pirates, and they all rushed towards the center of the battle. Boom! The whole island trembled violently, followed by a series of harsh explosions. The earth suddenly burst open, a violent explosion occurred, and the earth was torn open. The whole island can feel a slight vibration, which is enough to show how large the scale of the explosion is and how vast the scope of the impact is. Those who are slightly stronger will definitely be spared. Ordinary people will be torn apart by this strong vibration, flesh and blood flying, and the whole island is a mess. At the same time, several pirate members that Blackbeard had painstakingly searched also appeared, responsible for blocking this group of people to support Whitebeard. It must be done quickly. They won't be able to support it for long with their strength. Observation Hockey quietly spread and aware of the movement on the island. Blackbeard's face solidified, revealing a cautious meaning. Although the Whitebeard pirates are just sick tigers, there are also some powerful existences, such as Immortal Bird Marco and Diamond Jozu, who are extremely powerful existences. If this dragged on, they would definitely be bitten to death by these ants, including Blackbeard. When he thought of this, his gaze towards Whitebeard was filled with a bit more coldness and killing intent. Of course, the covetousness in his eyes was also clearly visible. He did not hesitate to kill Whitebeard for the tremor fruit. Time waits for no man. Looks like you're done for, old man. Hee hee. Blackbeard laughed maniacally when he saw the crimson blood at Whitebeard's feet. Give me an explanation, Titch. Whitebeard's entire face was engulfed by layers of darkness, trying to annihilate his entire head. However, his face was like steel and iron bones, and the corrosive darkness made it difficult for him to move. Explain? TSK. This old man's brain is still so dull. There's nothing to explain. Old man, I can tell you clearly that my wings have hardened. Now I want to spread my wings and fly. This reason is enough. Blackbeard's sarcasm was filled with endless pride. He had fantasized countless times about today's scene where he could hold his head high. For Whitebeard, Blackbeard has never been grateful. He has always regarded him as a tool. How can a living human being thank a tool? Even if I can't kill you, you won't feel good. After all, my current strength is comparable to an admiral and even surpasses an admiral. Staring at Whitebeard, whose cheeks were swallowed by darkness, Blackbeard's performance was impassioned. Being able to ride on the head of a Yonko, for emperors, and looking down at Whitebeard from a higher angle, Blackbeard enjoyed this pleasant and comfortable feeling. Ha ha ha, hey, are you kidding me? As the darkness around Whitebeard's face dissipated, Blackbeard's unbridled laughter stopped abruptly. His eyes widened, and his dumbfounded look was completely different from before. It was as if he had seen a ghost, and his eyeballs were about to pop out. Whitebeard's face was just scratched a little. Give me a reason not to kill you, Titch. The dead eyes stared at Blackbeard, and the corner of his eyes spread like ripples, taking in the tragic situation on the island. Because of the sudden incident, many pirates who didn't react were directly blown into a bloody mess, and their bodies were not preserved. Witnessing such a tragic scene, Whitebeard's face almost twisted into a ferocious expression. His bucket-sized fist tightly gripped the flickering bicento. Due to the excessive strength, the bulging veins on the surface of his skin could be clearly seen. The air flowing around Whitebeard showed signs of vibration, and faintly there were cracks, and with Whitebeard's anger, they rapidly expanded and extended. The ferocious transparent gap seemed to swallow the whole world. Gulp! Blackbeard was no longer as arrogant as before, and he swallowed his saliva. On his rough and ugly face, cold sweat fell like raindrops, and his legs were a little soft. As long as Whitebeard gave the order, these terrible cracks could swallow him and seriously injure him. With Tiger Elder's remaining might, the world's strongest man would definitely not be killed in an instant, especially not by a sewer rat like Blackbeard's sneak attack. Oh! I was forced by the Marine. It was the youngest admiral who forced me to do this. Seeing that the situation was not good, Blackbeard knelt down without hesitation, and the tears in the corner of his eyes flowed out like the sea. As long as necessary, they can flow out at any time, endless. The youngest admiral. Whitebeard heard the words, and the blue veins on his body disappeared in an instant, and his eyes flashed with fear. He has a unique understanding of the horror and power of Dustless. Decades ago, he may not be his opponent. Now that he is more than 70 years old, the gap between them is infinitely large. Old people really do become muddle-headed. Blackbeard looked at Whitebeard from the corner of his eyes, and seeing him showing a thoughtful expression, Blackbeard laughed secretly. Whitebeard was full of flaws. Just now, Blackbeard deliberately lowered his posture. He didn't expect this guy to be so compassionate. What a hopeless fool. Blackbeard will certainly not let go of such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He has killed most of the members of the Whitebeard pirates. It is tantamount to completely breaking with Whitebeard. Whitebeard, who values his companions, will not let Blackbeard go easily. While Whitebeard was careless, Blackbeard was surrounded by a strange black smoke, and immediately like a gust of wind, he floated out and quietly landed behind Whitebeard. His hand clenched into a fist, condensing more fierce force than the previous sneak attack, and he went straight to Whitebeard's back. Hey! There was no bloody scene as imagined. Between heaven and earth, there was only a harsh roar, and it spread to every corner of the world along with the breeze. Then a painful scream resounded through the sky. Ouch! It hurts, damn old man. The scream of a pig came out of Blackbeard's mouth, and his right arm was shaking uncontrollably, and Blackbeard's ugly old face was twisted violently in pain. Looking closely, Whitebeard's back has turned into black steel. Damn old man, armament hockey is so powerful. Taking a deep breath, Blackbeard's face was blue. Due to the dark fruit, the physical damage he received was twice as much as others, so it was extremely painful. His full-strength punch felt like it had hit a hard meteorite. Blackbeard, who did not expect this, felt like his arm was about to break. He grimaced in pain. I was just testing you. It seems that you are hopeless, Titch. Whitebeard turned his head and looked indifferently at Blackbeard, who was in pain, and his killing intent was boiling. His tone was cold, and of course, there was a bit of loneliness. There is nothing more sad than this. The most trusted person betrayed him in the end. Don't pretend there, you are the one who is hopeless. Blackbeard retorted with a fierce face, and his eyes were bloodshot. You, who have been silent in the emotional world of your family, have lost the courage of the past, and began to become mediocre. Until now, you are already at the end of your life. Shameless brat. Seeing this, Whitebeard's disdainful smile was even wider, and he didn't intend to ask why Titch betrayed him. After he catches this kid, he will naturally tell the truth. His eyes were cold, and his momentum rose to the limit. Ka. He raised both of his fists with a force that could destroy the world. Soon after, a transparent ripple seeped out. Cracks immediately appeared in the atmosphere on both sides of him as it rapidly expanded. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed Blackbeard, who was completely unaware of it. Boom boom boom, these transparent cracks obviously reached their limit, and they exploded like a mirror, turning into an endless impact. The autumn wind swept away the fallen leaves, and the entire battleship was razed to the ground. Kachi. Pa. The surface of the hull that was swept by the ripples cracked, and the crisp sound continued, performing the prelude of destruction. This pure and majestic destructive force almost destroyed the entire Moby Dick. The battleship that accompanied Whitebeard for his whole life was shaking and full of cracks. It didn't need a more powerful impact, just a cold wind blowing, to destroy this unbearable ship. Inevitably, Blackbeard also suffered. Whitebeard was afraid that Blackbeard would take advantage of the situation, so he made up his mind to destroy the entire Moby Dick. But it seemed to have no effect. The vibration caused by tremor fruit penetrated him. Whitebeard's eyes widened, and he showed a surprised expression. He saw Blackbeard's body strangely turned into wind, and easily avoided the vibration caused by tremor fruit. Although the hurricane that emerged from Blackbeard's body was also scattered by the impact, it condensed together again. This is not the ability of the Fruit of Darkness. It's like the elemental transformation of a Logia ability user. Whitebeard, who had seen such a strange scene for the first time in his life, raised his voice by several decibels. It was not difficult to see that he was also very shocked. Hey! In order to deal with you, I prepared countless means in advance. Otherwise, looking for you would be suicide, Oyaji. Blackbeard's tone was full of pride. Because of the dark fruit and his special body structure, Blackbeard can obtain other abilities. These days, for the sake of insurance, Blackbeard swallowed a lot of ability users as backup means. Paramecia, Logia, Zoa. Blackbeard swallowed all the ability users he thought were useful, including Logia ability users. Therefore, he just relied on his elemental transformation ability to calmly avoid the impact of Tremor fruit. All of this was a life-saving means to deal with Whitebeard and other threats. In other words, Blackbeard's countless abilities are now gathered in one body, and he is extremely dangerous. No wonder you dared to attack me. It sounds like he is quite afraid of Blackbeard, but from Whitebeard's calm tone, there is only contempt and disdain. It's more like ridicule. But what do you think this can change? You want to kill me with your fancy ability? I have stayed in the Whitebeard Pirates for more than 20 years. Have you been blind all this time? Titch. As Whitebeard's anger fell, the Moby Dick under his feet finally couldn't bear it and turned into dust. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard's face changed greatly. Devil fruit ability users will die if they fall into the sea. This unbreakable law has never been broken since ancient times. Using all his strength, he stepped on the fragments of the hull and swept towards the island. Boom! The ground trembled, and Blackbeard's huge body landed steadily. He turned his head to admire Whitebeard's embarrassed figure, but the powerful force from the sky blasted him deep into the ground. Chapter 744. Having received an unprecedented blow to his head, Blackbeard's consciousness almost fainted, and he spat out several mouthfuls of blood. The ground had sunk 5 or 6 meters because of Whitebeard, and the ground with a radius of tens of meters was slightly tilted downwards. The central area had become a bottomless pit. Whitebeard didn't use his full strength. He could easily tear up an island with his full strength. To Blackbeard, his sturdy fist was no different from Mount Tai. A casual punch was enough to heavily injure Blackbeard. He didn't even hold back on purpose. Blackbeard was easily beaten up. The ground that was affected cracked like a layer of ice, and the slightest movement would affect the rest of the body. Titch, do you know why I didn't kill you? Whitebeard said indifferently. His emotionless voice was like moving steel, giving people the feeling that he was isolated from the world and filled with endless coldness. Blackbeard resisted the tingling pain all over his body and stood up with difficulty. He looked at Whitebeard's eyes without fear. Now, he didn't think he would be forgiven by Whitebeard. It seems that I have to take the opportunity to slip away. Anyway, the guys in the Marine headquarters have promised me to become one of the Shichibukai. It doesn't matter if I succeed or not. Blackbeard's body was dripping with blood. He had been beaten up by Whitebeard. His heart had long since given up hope. He had completely recognized the huge gap between them. This old man was extraordinarily strong. It was impossible for a human to fight him one-on-one. Feeling the tingling pain all over his body, Blackbeard's face was hideous like a ghost. His eyes were full of fear as he looked at Whitebeard. His body involuntarily stepped back a few steps. Although it was a short confrontation, Blackbeard's self-confidence was destroyed and he couldn't resist. You think a useless piece of trash like you can kill me? It's undeniable that your courage is indeed extraordinary, but your strength is as weak as a reptile. After wandering in the sea for many years, Whitebeard not only practiced shocking strength, but also practiced a poisonous mouth. Blackbeard's face twitched and showed signs of turning green. He was trembling with anger. His breathing was abnormally heavy and his whole body was red. Thinking of his lofty aspirations, and looking at his current sorry state, his old face was burning with pain. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, and his eyes were hazy like water. Boom, boom, boom. A violent vibration exploded in the air, followed by a burst of sand and stones. Blackbeard was slightly stunned. He subconsciously looked over and saw that Lafitte, one of his only crew members, was beaten up by Marco. His body was covered in blood and flesh, just like his. Not only Lafitte, but the other crew members as well. We have to retreat quickly. If we stay here, we'll lose our lives. His twinkling eyes were replaced by determination. Blackbeard was about to shout for retreat, but Whitebeard's voice lingered in his ears. In front of me, do you think you have a chance to escape? Titch. After saying that, an unprecedented vibration came head-on. A destructive wave of air brushed past Blackbeard's body, and all the hair on his body stood on end uncontrollably. So, a cold wind blew, and Blackbeard's body once again turned into a hurricane. He used the Logia fruit he had swallowed to elemental transform to avoid the shock attack. Boom, boom, boom. Without a doubt, the ground was the one that was being tormented. A crack that was several kilometers long suddenly appeared and rapidly spread out, as if it was going to split the entire island apart. If I want to run, you can't stop me. Blackbeard retorted angrily. After being brutally beaten up by Whitebeard, the depression in his heart could be imagined. After 2 consecutive sneak attacks, this old man was actually safe and sound. Even his previous full-strength sneak attack had all landed on Whitebeard's face. He had only scratched his skin and suffered some external injuries. Blackbeard expressed that this was a blow to him. Whitebeard, who was over 70 years old, was still so terrifying that he could easily destroy an island. It was conceivable how strong he was at his peak. This old guy's strength is perfect. I can only start from other aspects. Although he was stubborn, Blackbeard knew the current gap. The chance of breaking through from strength was 0. He could only escape from other aspects. Dad, haven't you been looking for traces of Ace recently? In this world, I am one of the few people who know his whereabouts. Blackbeard said gloomily with a cunning light in his eyes. At the same time, Mariehua Dustless also frowned. The battle between Blackbeard and Whitebeard naturally could not escape Dustless's detection. White Zetsu's clones were all over the world, and he got the news almost immediately. Dustless could detect every move in the new world. Even White Zetsu secretly made a projection of Den Den Mushi, and he could clearly see the battle between Whitebeard and Blackbeard. No wonder Blackbeard would sneak attack him. It's really disturbing. Dustless nodded slightly, thinking of Blackbeard's sudden sneak attack a few days ago. The doubts in his eyes disappeared. Looking at Blackbeard's posture, it was obvious that he had complete control of the dark fruit and could use it at will. And according to Dustless's recent information, Blackbeard attacked a large number of ability users. How many abilities did he have? It was definitely not less than 10. Among them, there was no lack of some extremely special abilities. This was also the biggest capital that Blackbeard dared to sneak attack Whitebeard. A person could launch more than 10 kinds of devil fruits at the same time. It was self-evident what kind of fantasy this was. Chapter 745. Dustless frowned and looked at the scene in front of him through the image of Den Den Mushi. He looked at the embarrassed Blackbeard and couldn't help but scold him for being an ignorant stupid pig. Armament hockey is the natural enemy of ability users. It's a fool's dream to compete with the monster Whitebeard with multiple abilities. Blackbeard is still too far away. Then again. Dustless stared at White Zetsu's face and frowned and asked, Hawkeye hasn't left yet. If he hasn't gone, I'll take his place. I'll solve the Sky Island problem, and I'll personally inform Robin about some things. Not for the time being. He's very leisurely recently. White Zetsu said truthfully, looking at Dustless without asking much. Staring at Blackbeard, who was fighting with Whitebeard, Dustless knew that Blackbeard's joining of Shichibukai was unstoppable. He attacked Whitebeard and the promise made by Sengoku was bound to become a reality. Although the current world is different from the original work, Dustless doesn't care. Some things are different, but it's still a detour to the original starting point. Some things can't be avoided easily, and the wheel of history can't be stopped. Hawkeye can deal with Enel. White Zetsu frowned. At present, there are still a lot of trivial things waiting for Dustless to deal with. Enel, a quasi-admiral, can be easily obliterated by Hawkeye. Blackbeard's joining of Shichibukai is inevitable. Sengoku took advantage of Blackbeard's joining this time and forcibly summoned all the current Shichibukai, including Doflamingo and Moonlight Moria. This is also the news that Dustless has just received. Hawkeye is about to be transferred to Mariehua to participate in the Shichibukai meeting, so the news of cleaning up Enel will fall on him. As long as Enel is destroyed, a new Rumble fruit will be born in other parts of the world. With white Zetsu's clones all over the world, it's just around the corner to find the traces. It's estimated that it's the foreplay to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. Sengoku is the kind of person who believes that caution is the best way to sail a ship for 10,000 years. How can he not use such a good coolie like the 7 warlords of the sea? Dustless explained faintly. He understood Sengoku's intention. He was afraid that he was going to use the power of Shichibukai to deal with the Whitebeard pirates. Fighting evil with evil has always been the policy of the warring states. Dustless promised that after Fire Fist Ace recovered, he would offer him with both hands. At that time, Sengoku would definitely publicly execute Fire Fist Ace in front of the whole world. To put it bluntly, it was an operation to trap the Whitebeard pirates, and Fire Fist Ace was just a bait to catch the big fish. If you refuse this Shichibukai meeting, I'm afraid your title will be stripped. Dustless, who knows Sengoku's temperament, said. Frowning slightly, Dustless looked at the sky in the distance. His eyes were full of thoughts. In the original work, the reason why Whitebeard dared to fight with the Marine headquarters in public was that he still had some confidence to win. Now the world is completely out of control. Dustless and the Gorosei had an agreement. When the Marine headquarters was attacked, as an honorary admiral, he could not refuse the task. He must do his best to eliminate the enemy. It also means that Whitebeard will completely fight with Dustless. The final outcome is self-evident. There is no other way except for self-destruction. It seems that because of the appearance of Dustless-sama, the world has already changed. White Zetsu said helplessly. Whitebeard is not an idiot. He can't lose the entire pirates for Fire Fist Ace's life. For Fire Fist Ace, all his sons will be sent to hell. He won't do such a stupid thing. Therefore, whether Whitebeard will attack the Marine headquarters or not, only ghosts know. Without Dustless, there may be a few chances of winning, but Dustless, who is powerful enough to overturn the war, chose to intervene. Whitebeard's final choice is unknown. Maybe because of the existence of Dustless-sama, he will choose to abandon Fire Fist Ace. White Zetsu said. Thinking about it carefully, this possibility was indeed very high. He clearly knew that there was a dead end ahead, but he still faced it head-on like a hothead. Only an idiot would do such a thing. Whitebeard is a cunning old man who is as smart as a wolf. He will certainly not go into a trap. Feelings are a double-edged sword, hurting others and hurting oneself. In any case, Dustless will not turn a deaf ear to Fire Fist Ace, and it is impossible to abandon him. His eyes regained their focus, and Dustless affirmed. Fire Fist Ace's position is not only as simple as Whitebeard's son, but he is also the direct son of the Pirate King, Gold Roger. Whitebeard, who values friendship in his life, will not watch Ace be executed. His relationship with Roger is known to the world. They are enemies and friends. In the future, Sengoku will see this and choose to publicly execute Ace. What should we do? White Zetsu asked. Dustless's purpose is to hope that the world will go berserk. The annihilation of the Whitebeard pirates is bound to cause a loss of control. The sea that was once ruled by the Whitebeard pirates will also fall into a situation of war. After Whitebeard's death, the position of Yonko, 4 emperors, will be replaced by our people. He is the last product of the last era. He is not suitable for the new era. It is good to die with the wind like Roger and Golden Lion. A casual and short sentence, but it sentenced Whitebeard to death and also showed Dustless's position. As for Blackbeard, who became a Yonko, 4 emperors, after Whitebeard's death, he can only say that time does not wait for him. There are only 4 positions of Yonko, 4 emperors, and there is no need for one more. Chapter 746. The whole world is so big, and most of the area is occupied. The resources consumed are increasing day by day, and the place that can be developed is getting smaller and smaller. This world can only accommodate 4 Yonko, 4 emperors. Blackbeard joining Shichibukai is only temporary. His purpose is to impel his companions in the city. Dustless's tone is positive. Now Blackbeard Pirate's limbs are incomplete, and the crew including Blackbeard himself is only 3 or 4. What kind of embarrassment is self-evident? After plundering enough companions, he chose to defect from Shichibukai without any reluctance. Whiz! At this time, Dustless's body also flashed with golden luster, and they all rushed out of the window. Their bodies were filled with a large number of photons, and they could disappear at any time. Dustless-sama, you! White Zetsu was stunned. Dustless looked like he was going to go to a mysterious place. If we're late, Enel might slip away and run to the moon. It's not worth it. Looking into the void in the distance, Dustless seemed to see through the sky island thousands of miles away, and the scene thousands of miles away was played out in his eyes, and then his whole person turned into a rainbow and whistled straight out. In the boundless blue sky, only a straight golden beam was left, like a peerless sword out of its scabbard, and the void was cut by the awe-inspiring light. Hawkeye is about to be summoned by Sengoku to attend the Shichibukai meeting, and Doflamingo, one of the Shichibukai, is no exception. Dustless can only deal with Enel himself. At this moment, the farce between Blackbeard and Whitebeard was over. Hee. Father, you really aren't suited to be a pirate. Blackbeard gasped for breath. Blackbeard's eyes were full of contempt, and it was stupid to let go of a deadly enemy because of Fire Fist Ace. Titch, I'm too lazy to listen to your nonsense. Tell me what you know, or I can change what I said before. Whitebeard's eyes condensed a piercing cold light, and the words he said were as cold as the wind. Don't forget, I am a pirate, and speaking is also a feature of a pirate. Blackbeard's old face kept changing as he glared fiercely at Whitebeard. After a while, the flame in his heart was extinguished and disappeared. Now that things had come to this, he no longer wanted the tremor fruit. It was all thanks to God that he was able to keep his life. Tell me where Ace is, or else. Humph. The moment the majestic roar fell, Whitebeard's powerful feet stomped on the ground, and the ground under his feet suddenly became like paper scraps. Dense cracks flashed in the air, and the degree of density was like a spider web. The threat and disdain in his words were not concealed at all. He looked at Blackbeard with a cold and merciless gaze, as if he was an insect, not paying any attention to him. There was nothing but contempt. Concealing Ace's tracks, this is your end. Pointing at the ground that had turned into granules under his feet, Whitebeard warned with a stern expression. His eyes were filled with blood-red killing intent. Clearly, he was not joking. At the same time, a murderous aura surged out of his body, and his momentum was as great as a demon. In his decades of pirate career, he had destroyed many pirates under Whitebeard, and the accumulated murderous aura was suffocating. If you look around, you will be shocked to find that there are some miserable white frost on the ground. This is all caused by Whitebeard's shocking murderous aura. He has been in the sea for many years, and the pirates and marines that he has destroyed are as many as the sky. The specific number is simply impossible to calculate. Blackbeard's old face was pale. Even breathing was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Invisibly, someone was strangling his neck, wanting to kill him. In reality, Blackbeard knew that this was because Whitebeard's killing intent was too terrifying, causing him to hallucinate. Hey! Blackbeard laughed strangely, but it was not difficult to see that he was holding on. In order to save his life, he chose to tell Ace's whereabouts. If he resisted, he would really be torn to pieces by Whitebeard. Blackbeard, who was greedy for life and afraid of death, regarded his life as the most important. Ace was taken away by the youngest admiral of the Fire Fist. Thinking of Wu Chen's indifference to the common people and his indifferent face towards all living things, she couldn't help but take a deep breath. Her heart still had a lingering fear, and her eyes still had the joy of surviving a disaster. This is what I saw with my own eyes. Fearing that the old guy Whitebeard would not believe him, Blackbeard repeated it firmly. Whitebeard's old face went straight, full of hatred, and Dustless's thin body suddenly flashed in his mind. His limbs were weak, and sometimes he had a kind smile like a spring breeze. His temperament was elegant and natural, and occasionally he had a bookish taste. He was slender and not very tall, about 1.75 meters. Even so, the strength that could shatter the sky with a snap of his fingers made Whitebeard desperate. Ace was taken away by him. Whitebeard's voice trembled, and his face was a little dull, showing disbelief. Then Whitebeard, who recovered from the shock, had a black face. When Ace was in charge of the devil fruit transaction, Dustless happened to rush back to Mariehua from East China Sea. The island they passed by on the way happened to be the place where Ace and the others traded. Idiot, now is not the time for you to be surprised and depressed. Blackbeard's mouth curled into a fierce smile, and his eyes narrowed. Whitebeard was silent, and in the sluggish state of Ace's arrest, it was a rare opportunity to escape. Chapter 747. Whitebeard's face was full of horror and unsightly, but it was also vaguely filled with fear. His impassioned heart, which had planned to save Ace, fell to the bottom of the valley with mixed feelings. His face instantly became a lot more weathered, and his firm back was especially filthy and crooked. Ripples splashed in his eyes, and the members of the Whitebeard pirates came into his sight. Whitebeard was strangely silent as he fell into a dilemma, unable to advance or retreat. Looking for trouble with Dustless was tantamount to death. Whitebeard could die by himself, but if he took his sons with him, it would be too irresponsible. And Ace was his son, and these people were also his sons. At this moment, Whitebeard's eyes suddenly looked up, and his eyes were cold again. He asked indifferently, "Titch, I haven't said that you can leave yet." Staring at Blackbeard, who wanted to take the opportunity to escape, Whitebeard's face outlined a sneer, like a cat playing with a mouse. Blackbeard's face stiffened, and he turned his head to show a cold light. "You said before that if I tell you the news of Firefist, you will let me go safely? Do you want to go back on your words?" His voice was a few decibels high, and Blackbeard insinuated that Whitebeard should pay attention to his identity. There was no need to argue with an unknown person. Even if he had the strength of an admiral, or even the strength of an admiral, Blackbeard was still a pirate with zero bounty. It was difficult to see how deep his thoughts were. Kohaha! The haze on Whitebeard's brows was swept away, revealing a happy smile. After a while, his vicious eyes locked onto Blackbeard's ugly body, shooting out a monstrous murderous intent. "Don't forget, I have kindly reminded you before, I am a pirate, and it is a pirate's characteristic to break promises." Whitebeard did not hesitate to tear up the previous treaty. He still had countless things to understand, and naturally, it was impossible to let Blackbeard go. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. It was a strange place, surrounded by white clouds, and the majestic mountains stood on the ground. The scenery was beautiful, and the surrounding environment was quiet and peaceful. "Is this the Sky Island?" Dustless floated strangely in the air, looking at the serene and beautiful world in the distance. His heart, which had been affected by the noise of the world, also settled down. His body moved as if he was flying forward. The more he flew forward, the more confused Dustless's eyes became. In the end, his eyebrows were tightly pressed together. The green grass on the ground was replaced by a scorched black color, and the air was filled with an indescribable ominous feeling. Closing his eyes, Dustless tried to spread out his observation hockey, and the scene of the entire Sky Island was in his eyes. How is this possible? Could it be that I'm lost? After a long time, Dustless opened his eyes, revealing a rare look of disbelief. He spread his observation hockey and carefully perceived the movements of the island. Dustless, who was sure that he had not come to the wrong place, frowned and was shocked to find that the entire island was in a scorched state, and the humans on the island had disappeared out of thin air. Could it be? It seems that I am a step late, and the Straw Hat Pirates have killed that guy. Dustless narrowed his eyes, and through his observation hockey perception, he clearly noticed that there were clear traces of fighting on the destroyed island. His observation hockey continued to magnify without limit, as if to take the whole world into his perception. Then Dustless was surprised to find that the more he went forward, the more corpses there were. At first, there were only 1 or 2 sporadic corpses, and in the end, the corpses were piled up like a mountain. Without exception, the corpses of these people were old and young, and they were full of stench. Obviously, they have been here for a long time. In addition, everyone's whole body was seriously burned. It seems that the naivety of the Straw Hat Pirates has harmed you. After a long silence, Dustless frowned vaguely. I am afraid that after Enel was defeated by Monchi D. Luffy, he returned to the Sky Island to destroy all the creatures on the island. It's your own fault for helping the Straw Hat Pirates. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. The islanders who were slaughtered by Enel could only be said to be looking for trouble. He still clearly remembers that the indigenous people of the Sky Island helped the Straw Hat Pirates. As a result, Enel's heaven's punishment was directly crushed into powder on the spot. Enel was originally a cruel and merciless person. He once destroyed his hometown with his own hands. If the Straw Hat Pirates could kill Enel, these innocent islanders wouldn't have attracted such a disaster. In the end, Enel was so horrible that he killed them all. Idiot, you haven't left yet. The sky suddenly darkened, and Dustless raised his eyes to look at the large flying object in the sky. With a sneer on his face, he flew straight towards it. Damned Straw Hat, I'll tear you to shreds. Enel evaporated the apple in his hand, and his eyes were blood red. 3 days later, his body has fully recovered. Enel is a rumble fruit user, so he can stimulate and heal his body through electrotherapy, and his recovery is far better than ordinary people. However, at this moment, a strange black shadow rose from the ground and landed in front of Enel. Who are you, you bastard? Enel asked with a murderous look, his tone full of arrogance. Enel prided himself as a god and regarded all human beings as playthings. They were more like clowns to please him. Now this inexplicable guy floated in the air and looked down at him. His dignity was greatly challenged. Me. Dustless smiled softly and looked at the tall Enel with a playful smile. An ordinary person, but now I have a new profession. Garbage collector. As for the object of recycling, you are the only one left on this island. You should know who to recycle. Chapter 748. Because of eating the strongest Logia rumble fruit since childhood, Enel's heart inevitably grew arrogant. Powerful strength brought him unprecedented pleasure, so he became more and more arrogant. Invincible strength made Enel more and more confident, convinced that he was an extraordinary existence, omnipotent, and could easily do anything. This ability was beyond human cognition. As time went by, Enel also looked at himself with special eyes. God. Perhaps it was because he had been at the top for a long time. Enel did not understand Dustless's meaning. With a straight face, his eyes were full of contempt, and he said in a condescending tone, "There is nothing you want here. If you don't want to die, go away." Enel waved his hand unhappily. He had just destroyed the entire island, so he was in a good mood, so he generously let go of Dustless. Now the first task was to retaliate against the Straw Hat, not to waste time with this eyesore. Let me go, but first I need to confirm one thing. Dustless stared at Enel, and his eyes flashed with a strange light. Enel was young, but he had the strength of a quasi-general, which was a rare thing in the New World. For a time, it was inevitable that such a strong person would surpass the 3 Grey Generals in the future, close to Hawkeye, and even infinitely close to a peerless powerhouse like Whitebeard. Rumble fruit was the strongest Logia fruit. This was certainly not out of thin air, but an undeniable fact. The Straw Hat boy you mentioned, I have seen him. In fact, I can take you to chase him, but before Dustless's voice fell, Enel interrupted him with a ferocious look. His expression was full of hatred and monstrous killing intent, and dazzling thunder and lightning surrounded him. But my ass! Tell me the whereabouts of that group of people, and I will spare your life. Hearing this, Dustless glanced at Enel faintly, and the desire to win over talent in his heart disappeared. His dead eyes rippled dangerously. Sorry, I'm done talking, let's continue the topic just now. I'm just an ordinary garbage collector. His calm and tranquil face loosened, and the corners of his mouth rose gently. A playful smile appeared on his face. Dustless rubbed his smooth chin playfully and circled around Enel, his eyes full of ridicule. However, you seem to be the only one on this island at the moment. Who do you think is the target? Enel's face was dark, and his whole body was covered with even more dense lightning. He was like a mighty and domineering thunder god, sacred and inviolable, and all things in the world bowed in front of him. Even an idiot would understand the meaning behind Dustless's words. Mere human, don't get too carried away. Enel roared hysterically like a raging beast. The bastard in front of him who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth dared to provoke him. What made Enel even angrier was that he even wanted to sell him as trash. The anger in Enel's heart was self-evident. He was like an erupting volcano, exuding an aura of death and destruction. Boom, boom, boom. A deafening explosion resounded, and the originally cloudless sky suddenly darkened. Chilly winds blew, and it was suffused with a bone-piercing gloomy coldness and an oppressive aura of destruction. Looking up at the sky, he didn't know when it started, but the sky was occupied by a large number of thick dark clouds, rolling violently, full of endless magic power, which was impossible to dispel. The range was boundless, almost covering the entire sky of the Sky Island. Such a large scale was like the anger of a god. Just a thought was enough to change the color of the sky. Oh, no wonder this little devil is so arrogant. Dustless was weak in the whistling cold wind, and the corners of his clothes were blown to the sky. He was unusually weak, and combined with Dustless's pale face, it seemed that the whole world had abandoned him. Even if you kneel and beg for mercy, I will not let you go. Blasphemy is an unforgivable crime, Enel said proudly, and his eyes were filled with lightning. Hearing this, Dustless just turned his head and glanced at Enel, and then looked away calmly. Same to you, even if you cut off all your limbs, I will not let you go. Sure enough, my heart is still unstable, and I even pity a hopeless pawn like you. Really, it seems that I have been overflowing with love recently. Dustless looked up and sighed, with a little self-deprecating. Enel heard these words and his whole body twitched fiercely. Then he suddenly raised his right arm and aimed it at Dustless, and the murderous aura of his whole body was almost tangible. Boom, boom, boom. In the dark sky where the dark clouds rolled, there was a harsh thunder, and the gloomy sky shone brightly for a moment, and the violent light that wanted to destroy everything tilted down. A white-silver beam of light fell from the sky, covering Dustless, who was unaware of it. Being covered by this silver light, there was a sense of fear. His skin felt tingling. Dustless subconsciously raised his eyes and looked up at the silver beam of light that shot down from the depths of the dark clouds. The strong light made him instinctively close his eyes, and looking at it would burn his eyes. A mere ant dares to look up at the dawn of God. You don't know what's good for you. Enel scornfully looked at Dustless, who was shrouded in the beam of light. He read the meaning of regret from Dustless's actions, but Enel's face was still indifferent. A little ant dared to offend his supreme divine power. He must kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Crackle, crackle. An ear-piercing sound came from Enel's hand, and it seemed to be able to pierce the eardrums. The sharp roar made people's scalp tingle, and they could not help but cover their ears. Disappear, you eyesore. There was a cold light in his eyes, and then the thunder and lightning that jumped from his fingertips rushed up, and simply went into the dark clouds, like a rock entering the sea, and disappeared without a trace. The only difference was that the silver beam of light that enveloped Dustless had obviously reached its limit, and it trembled slightly, reaching the limit of what it could bear. He raised his arm with great momentum, and immediately looked murderous as he slammed it down. God's punishment. Boom, boom, boom. The silver beam of light that enveloped Dustless shook violently, and then a huge scale of lightning slammed down. The speed of the lightning was extremely fast, and almost in an instant, it filled the beam of light that connected heaven and earth. Dustless, who was bathed in the beam of light, was the first to be impacted, and his body was directly swallowed by the lightning of destruction. Heaven and earth were connected to each other, and the beam of light that was tens of meters high burst, erupting a strong shock wave. The Sky Island on the ground suddenly trembled violently, and there seemed to be an earthquake of tens of magnitude in the local area, and the soil buried deep in the ground was turned over again. The lightning that fell from the sky was like a meteor crashing down. The entire ground cracked and collapsed, showing a state of charred decay. The range was boundless. At a glance, the ground within a radius of 100 meters was the same. It was too horrible to look at, and the vegetation was forbidden. Thunder and lightning were one of the most destructive natural factors in the world, and all creatures were afraid of thunder and lightning. This was also the fundamental reason why Enel dared to call himself a god. Thunder and lightning were regarded as a god's attack by some unintelligent humans, and it was reasonable for Enel, who could control thunder and lightning, to call himself a god. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. You deserve it, idiot, haha. There was nothing in the world in front of him, and Enel's unscrupulous arrogant smile resounded through the sky, full of endless joy. This is the result of provoking a god. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Enel could be proud for long, the boundless void flashed with a dazzling golden brilliance. What is this strange thing? It seems to be sunlight. But it doesn't seem to be. Standing on a large spaceship, Enel's eyes widened, and where his gaze focused, a strange scene was playing out. From his dull eyes, it was not difficult to see that Enel didn't understand what this was. In the void about 15 meters ahead, countless dense photons condensed, like an invisible vortex in the deep sea, frantically plundering the light from all around. Soon, a thin figure appeared under the combination of photons. Don't put on such an expression of disbelief. There are as many nature-type ability users in this world as there are carps crossing the river. You're not the only one. Monkey D. Luffy, who is fighting with you, is a devil fruit ability user. Seeing Enel's eyes full of confusion, Dustless explained calmly. He saw that Wu Chen was unscathed. His expression was indifferent as usual. He didn't look like someone who had just survived a disaster. His calm and casual appearance quietly told everyone that everything was fine. Dustless in this state was particularly dazzling, at least in Enel's eyes. Although I don't know what you mean, it seems that you are the same as me. You ate that strange fruit and got some kind of superpower as a result. Enel said in a hoarse voice, and the arrogance on his face quickly disappeared. With Luffy as an example, he became much more careful and calm. The explanation is a bit far-fetched, but it is what you mean. I am also an ability user like you. Dustless couldn't help but look at Enel in a new light. He didn't expect this arrogant kid to be so adaptable. I am the light man who ate the glint fruit and inherited everything from the light. After that, Dustless's body flashed with a dazzling flash, and like a ghost, he appeared behind Enel. Light speed kick. Dustless's leg, which was enough to easily destroy a small mountain, flew out with all his strength, but unexpectedly, the kid was alarmed in advance. His whole body was covered with silver lightning, and in an instant, he disappeared from Dustless's sight, and his kick inevitably missed. Observation Hockey's attainments are good, and he can predict my movements. Dustless frowned slightly, and his eyes splashed with ripples. He was quite surprised. He didn't expect Enel's observation hockey to be so deep. It turns out that it's not because of the depth of this kid's observation hockey, but because of the particularity of the rumbling thunderfruit, his observation hockey range is so large. Suddenly thinking of Enel's ability, Dustless's doubts disappeared. Enel himself has a certain foundation of observation hockey, and can predict the enemy's movements. Because his physique is thunder and lightning, after using observation hockey, he can hear other people's movements in the form of electric waves, so the range covers the entire Sky Island. I can predict your movements, which means that your attacks can't work on me. Clearly catching the doubts in Dustless's eyes, Enel roared vigorously, his eyes shining brightly, and it was not difficult to see that he was full of chi. Pa pa pa, there was a harsh roar in the void, and then Enel disappeared between heaven and earth. The speed of lightning was beyond imagination, and the dynamic ability of the naked eye was difficult to capture. Kids nowadays are so arrogant. You use the combination of the rumble fruit and the hockey of observation hockey to improve your perception ability without limit. You can indeed perceive my existence. But why should I worry about not being able to perceive your existence? This rule is no exception for anyone, and you are the same. With a cold smile, Dustless could clearly perceive the lightning floating behind him through Haushika's perception ability. In fact, Enel had been wandering behind him, but because of the speed, he couldn't be detected by the naked eye. Whiz! Accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, Dustless's body suddenly disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already in the sky dozens of meters behind him. Dustless closed his eyes, and Enel was so fast that normal human eyes lost their function. The shimmering calf was hurled towards the afterimage that was floating in the air. Boom boom boom. There was a violent vibration in the void, a large fireball splashed, and the ripples visible to the naked eye expanded rapidly, and a black shadow was blasted to the ground. Looking closely, Enel, with black smoke all over his body, was deep in the soil, and he was obviously greatly injured. His body curled up involuntarily. He intended to stand up and fight again, but his bad physical condition made him helpless. Chapter 749. Looking down at the motionless Enel below, Dustless also landed on the ground. He landed about 10 meters away from Enel. When he was about to finish off this kid, an ear-piercing roar swept through the air and drilled into his ears. Then, he saw a dazzling silver flash on Enel's body. It's worthy of being called invincible fruit. Its attack power is strong enough to destroy the world, its speed is unparalleled, and its healing is unique. Such a comprehensive fruit is perfect. Dustless nodded in appreciation, and his heart was splashed with flames, and he coveted the rumble fruit a little more. Because Enel is thunder, he can adjust the ability of thunder to stimulate the whole body, commonly known as electrotherapy. Massaging his heart with electricity can make it beat again. In just the blink of an eye, Enel regained consciousness from fainting. How can a mere human predict my speed? He is not a god. How can he understand lightning? In addition, this guy can touch my body, and he can hit me. Looking at Dustless warily, Enel thought about countermeasures. He is used to relying on the rumble fruit. This is the first time he has encountered such an unexpected situation. At present, in the elemental state, Dustless is the first person who can attack his strength. It's a world of difference from the strong enemies he has encountered in the past. When he was attacked just now, he had used the elemental state to avoid it, but he did not expect to be hit in the end. If it were not for the special reason of the rumble fruit, Enel would have been killed. Staring at his burnt body, Enel had a cold sweat on both sides of his temples. The kick made his internal organs stop working in an instant, and his life was in danger. If it weren't for the ability of electrotherapy, this game would have been a fiasco because of his carelessness, and he might have even lost his life. Eyes full of caution and vigilance, Enel hit the drum on his right shoulder, making a dull and sharp sound, and the violent lightning screamed manically. 30 million volt Thunderbird. A giant bird completely condensed by thunder and lightning was formed in an instant, its wings stretched out, and immediately flapped, and a fierce storm came out of the wings. When it blows on the human face, it will feel an unprecedented tingling, and the skin will sting like being pricked by needles. Hum, hum, hum. A loud and clear cry resounded between heaven and earth. It was as if a phoenix had spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its vivid and lifelike figure was elegant and noble, untouchable. This noble divine bird could only silently admire its figure. Then, it bent down towards Dustless and opened its sharp beastly mouth, wanting to devour Dustless. You're just a mere beast. Do you think you can transform from a pheasant into a phoenix just by changing your appearance? Naive. Dustless looked fearlessly at the Thunderbird swooping down. A look of disdain appeared in his eyes as a large number of high-density photons condensed and compressed in his hand. The outline of a sharp golden sword was faintly taking shape. Heaven-gathering cloud sword. The moment the Thunderbird swallowed Dustless, the compressed lightsaber in his hand rapidly formed. Then, he raised his hand and the sharp golden light easily pierced through the Thunderbird's body. Puchi! The ferocious Thunderbird let out a sorrowful cry as it was cut in half by Tian Songyun's sword. Bastard, although a Thunderbird isn't a very strong move, it shouldn't be broken up like this. Enel's old face turned green, his eyes spitting fire. For the first time in his life, he felt defeated and powerless. He had a feeling that he could not beat Dustless even if he tried his best. She had never realized that he was so fragile and not worth mentioning. Bang, bang, bang. In a fit of anger, Enel hammered the strangely shaped drum behind him, ignoring his weak body. Hum, hum, hum. A sharp beast cry once again sounded in the calm sky. A couple of giant birds that were completely condensed from lightning flapped their wings and flew high into the sky. They flapped their wings excitedly, and immediately turned into a storm as they rushed toward Dustless. It's not that simple. With a sneer, Enel continued to beat the drum behind him. Immediately, several ferocious wolves condensed in an instant and rushed toward Dustless side by side. The joint attack of land and air blocked Dustless's retreat. Especially the beasts condensed from lightning on the ground, they came from all directions, not giving Dustless a chance to escape. Insignificant skill. With a cold look, Dustless condensed a large number of dense photons in his hand. The shining light was as dazzling as the sun. Yasakani no Magatama. Countless light bullets shot out from the palm of his hand, and the sky was dyed golden. The concentrated attack destroyed everything in its path. The lightning birds in the sky and the lightning beasts running on the ground were all killed by 1,000 cuts and cut into pieces. They were no longer as powerful as before. They fell to the ground like dead dogs and gradually dissipated. Enel's face twitched violently, and he was about to curse when Dustless's ghostly voice sounded in his ears. He suddenly turned his head and saw Dustless with a cold expression, and the golden light sword that followed. Pucci! Enel's handsome face suddenly had a hideous scorched scar. This was the result of Enel's quick retreat. If he reacted a little slower, his head might have been separated from his body. Touching the wound on his face in horror, Enel's eyes were filled with a rare fear. He had been opening the heart net, observation hockey, but he didn't perceive Dustless's attack. Like a ghost suddenly appearing beside him, he couldn't detect it. Enel could guarantee with his life that it was definitely not a simple physical movement, but a space jump in some strange way. It was completely impossible to guard against. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.